Alrighty, and we are live. Welcome everybody to the 60-second and end of year special episode of Coaster Time, hosted by me, Carrick from Coaster Hour. And for today's episode, we will be doing an end of year recap with a lot of segments that are related to that, including my countdown of every new park I visited this year, along with a review of the 2024 bingo card that I set up last year, and reveal of our 2025 bingo card. And then we'll also be doing a short overview of my top 15 most anticipated new for 2024 coasters, along with my countdown for my top 15 most anticipated new for 2025 roller coasters. We'll also be doing Q&A and Guess the Coaster, and further details can be found about the itinerary in a description down below. With all of that said, I'm going to get us started with some first Q&A or buy or sell. So any questions you have about anything, just related to industry or whatever, you can ask it now. And then any buy or sells you have, now would be one of two opportunities to be able to ask about that. So that'll be how we will get the stream started. And hope all of you have had happy holidays and been able to celebrate very well. Hopefully been able to meet up with family. So it's been a very fun few days for me to do that and have dinner and everything. So hope you all have been having a good time as well with that. But as I mentioned, any Q&A you have, any buy or sells, that's what we're doing right now. So ask away in terms of questions. I saw that Michael earlier. You'll be checking out the stream tomorrow. Alrighty. Good to see. And hope you've been doing well as well. But as I mentioned, any questions that you have or any buy or sells, now would be the time to ask. And we will go from there. So that'll be the plan. But yeah, that'll be it. I guess I should mention, in terms of the stream, didn't love the timing of this, just kind of being right after the holidays and everything. But I actually have a trip coming up, so that is sort of what sparked the timing. I'm going to be heading overseas in a few days, so that is why the timing is a little unusual, perhaps. Even though I do streams on Friday night, just because it's not as much of, it's more unusual, more in the fact of just where it's located in relation to the holidays. But as I mentioned, any questions you have, any buy or sells, now would be the time to ask. I didn't have a news segment for this stream either, just because I already had a few different segments already handled. But obviously there's been some things that have occurred since the last stream that I did. Obviously today we got the official confirmation of Hollywood Rip Ride Rocket. That's going to be permanently closing in September, which is actually a lot longer of a sort of time frame for people to get their final rides in, which is obviously good. I kind of mentioned, if you follow me on Instagram, my thoughts on that whole situation, how I thought that Hollywood Rip Ride Rocket, when I went to ride it in 2023, it was my personal favorite ride at Universal Studios Florida, just the park itself, not the entire resort. But that I was at peace with those being my final rides, just because I kind of knew at that point that was very likely that was going to be the case, even back in 2023, just all the rumors that were flying, the song list change that was made. So I look forward to seeing what exactly they replace it with. I'm curious if we'll get any details on that once they make their official announcement, even though they unveiled it through a reply on Twitter. But hopefully we'll get some more information in terms of what the future of that plot of land will look like. So that is certainly something. And we got Anaconda a few days ago as well, demolition permits, and then also confirmed today by the park themselves that that'll be officially closing. Not a ride I was able to do, but obviously another Aero Looper biting the dust, that one especially in a very unique location over the water. Hopefully whatever replaces it will utilize that great setting. But I know there are people who would have liked to get last rides on it that were unable to, so that was unfortunate in terms of how that was handled. But as I said, if anyone has any questions, make sure to ask in the chat. Let me just make sure that I have it on the right setting. And then I can kind of go into some of the other segments. Like I said, we'll be ranking every new park that I visited in 2024. Bit of a smaller list in compared to previous years, or actually it's pretty close in quantity. It's just the quality of parks is a little different because it was a lot of credit stops along with a few destination parks, but I'll kind of be going over it in that way. But as I mentioned, any questions you have related to anything that's happened as of late, any buy or sells, make sure to let me know, and we will go from there as I mentioned. So that'll be the plan. Also, let me know, make sure if everything's going over correctly in terms of audio and everything. Should be. I'm not seeing any issues on my own end. I just want to make sure that everything's good there. So, like I said, any questions you have or any comments or anything of that sort, this will be one of 2 opportunities to do that. And then we will go ahead and move into some of the later parts of our stream. So that will be our plan for this one. So yeah, I'm trying to think of what else has occurred since the last stream I did, because I think it was over a month ago. I think I mentioned that actually the last stream I did was the IAPA, post-IAPA Expo, and my trip to Florida. So that was definitely a while ago. So Nighthawk, I think, wasn't announced yet either in terms of being closed. So that's another coaster that you can kind of add to the list in terms of ones that weren't open or not open, that permanently closed without any notice. But obviously that's another one because that was the first, I'll just say, major flying coaster to ever open. Unfortunate, that one was kind of expected because of the amount of issues it has had and the low capacity and throughput. So that one kind of made sense as well. But yeah, so that certainly wasn't the biggest surprise, especially when like the rumors were swirling. It's like, yeah, I could definitely see that one biting the dust. But as mentioned, like I said, if any questions, just any comments you have, let me know. I see there's like about 7 people in chat, or allegedly according to my screen. Oh boy. And here we go. We got our first one from Airtime Thrills. Buy or sell, we have another Six Flags closure bombshell announced before 2025. I'm going to buy it just because how many days do we have? We have 4 more days. I don't know if it's like it'll be officially announced, but I could definitely see like demo permits coming up, kind of like Anaconda, and see that we have some coaster that is basically in some way confirmed to be closed. So I will certainly buy that. I think that we could certainly see it. I can't even gun to my head. I would bet that it happens, which is just crazy. Yeah, of course it won't be announced, but yeah, demo permits, exactly. Hello, Civilian Satellite, how are you doing? Hope all of you in the chat, as I mentioned earlier, have been having a good holiday season as well. So wanted to repeat that again. But like I said, just doing some Q&A, any buy or sells that you have. We'll go into some of those, and then I'll probably go into my next segment pretty soon here, which we'll be going into just kind of recapping things that happen. I'm going to rank every park I visited this year, review the bingo cards that I made both for last year and upcoming, and then do some like guess the coaster along with some other 2024 and 2025 related rankings as well. With all the big closure news, I'm shocked that we haven't lost a wooden coaster through it all. Immediately knocks on wood. That's a good point. Yeah, that is funny because that was one of the. I mean, we'll see, but I imagine you bring it up because that was one of the ones I had on my bingo card that has yet to be filled. And then once we bring up the bingo card, honestly, we'll probably have to clarify that it's possible something crazy happens in the next few days, so it gets changed, but that'll be updated on Twitter. Or not Twitter, sorry, Instagram. I was just thinking of Twitter because that's how we got our Hollywood Rip Ride Rocket confirmation. Um, but yeah, I guess it is a good thing though that we haven't for sure lost a wooden coaster this year. Obviously, we've had the Lakemont kind of SB&O stuff, but that's not like a permanent deal, hopefully. Buy or sell, 1 year from now, we will look back at Falcons Flight's year and view it as a success. Um, I think it's gonna have issues its first year. I'd be very surprised if it ends up going completely smoothly, just in its first year. My hope is that it is able to work out. I don't think it's gonna be like a complete disaster. I just think there could be a decent amount of downtime and some various things that may have to be worked through. So I don't know that if we're saying that it's going to be like just this brilliant success that's going to be mostly operational and whatnot. I would probably bet against that, so I would say sell. But I mean, I mean, if that does happen, that certainly would be very good for a lot of people who are interested in going out there. Assuming Six Flags Qiddiya opens next year, which I think it will, but that is also to be determined. But they are at least planning to open it next year. Um, Buy or sell, the next Six Flags closure bombshell will be Superman Escape from Krypton finally biting dust. There's actually some recent activity that was going on around there. There was like some launch parts that we're seeing in Scream's parking lot. I didn't get the full gist of what was going on, but didn't necessarily seem like stuff that was making it seem like it was for sure doomed. So I would sell that. Also, I think Superman Escape from Krypton, it would be a while before we actually know that it's permanently closed, even if they've already decided it never opens, because they can just operate Lex Luthor, which also has downtime issues, but, um, but, anyways, theoretically, they could just keep operating Lex Luthor and justifying that tower being up for a while. I think we would get some other coaster that would be that we would get demo permits or that would be announced first. So I will sell that just because I think there's other options. I mean, you got Flash up in Discovery Kingdom that's just chilling. So we will see. Yeah, it's kind of hard to say honestly what that was all about. I mean, I guess you could just say not really any good or bad you can take from it, at least just on the surface in terms of the Superman stuff. Mattel said they have parks planned beyond Phoenix and Kansas City. When do you suspect we'll learn more info? I think it would be a good idea. I'm gonna guess probably post the Arizona location's opening. Maybe that one, maybe they could do it when it opens, as like when it's exciting and like all the stuff's coming out about it, and they're like, oh well, actually we have some other ones that are coming to these cities, so I could see it like very close to after opening. I think that could make a lot of sense in terms of the first location, because that's probably going to be when a lot of news places are just places on social media in general are going to be covering how everything looks, and then people can get excited about their future location coming. So I think that might be a good idea in terms of when to release that information. At least plan to do that, and then hopefully that location has a successful opening and everything. So yeah, I think that would probably make sense. Yeah, could have been basic maintenance or repairing parts. Yeah, who knows? Buy or sell, Great Adventure will not share footage. I mean, they won't share footage themselves. They definitely won't, but there will definitely be people who will try to see it. So I certainly will buy that. Yeah, they're not gonna share any footage of that happening. There's no way. Um, I mean, they can try all they want to like shield it from the public as much as they want, but I mean, there's gonna be people who are filming that. There's nothing they can do about that. So, um, I don't know exactly where the best vantage points from outside the park are gonna be. in terms, because I've never been to Great Adventure. So I don't know exactly where would be the best viewing areas for that, but people are gonna film it 100%. I mean, we literally even have a day for when that's happening. I mean, um, yeah, and yeah, as Chris brings up here, Hollywood did catch the parachute tower toppling over, which that was shared around everywhere. I mean, I saw a ton of that, people just sharing that all over. So yeah, the complosion is going to be definitely there's going to be a lot of views on that. So and footage of it will definitely get out there. Great Adventure can try their best, but it's getting out there. So. I don't think there's anything they can do to stop it. It's just they definitely. I would be very stunned if they release their own footage of it, because that just would be kind of crazy. So to do that, but who knows? Definitely will be quite the spectacle when it occurs. That's for sure. All right, I think that'll wrap it up for now for buy or sell, and also questions. So if you have any more, I will be doing a segment toward the end of the stream, but we'll move on to the next segment, which will be ranking every new park I visited this year. So I was able to get to 9 parks this year. Most of them were smaller kind of credit stops, so I'll kind of be talking about them in that sort of light, just as sort of a just as like a credit stop, like information, like the pricing of it, and just kind of very basic thoughts of the first part of parks that I'm going to be talking about. And then I'll also be going into the destination parks that I went to, because I went to some for the first time this year. So with that being said, and I see Jackson in chat, hello, hope you've been having a good holiday season. But we will go into this countdown. And then as I'm going through the parks, if you've been or have an interest, give your thoughts on them. I'll probably comment on those as I go. But the first new park I went to, like I said, first few of these are going to be really tiny. I was able to go to Oakland Zoo, which is going to be here at number 9. Basically, and specifically in the Adventure Landing, I'll kind of explain how this park works because it's a little confusing. So this is in Oakland, California. If you're a coaster enthusiast that's near the area, it's going to be 35 miles south of Six Flags Discovery Kingdom and 35 miles north of California's Great America, so it's actually right in between both of them. Despite the name of the park on RCDB being Oakland Zoo, because there is an actual zoo there, you don't actually have to get zoo admission to get the credit and ride the rides. The rides area is basically like just a separate facility next to the zoo. You just have to pay for parking. So the cost to get the credit, if you're just going for that, is $16. You got $13 for parking and $3 to get the coaster credit. The coaster credit in question is the Tiger Trek Wisdom Rides Dragon Wagon. I mean, so like you're basically just going there to increase your credit count. It's 3 laps on an OK Kitty coaster. It doesn't track the smoothest, but it has a smidge of laterals, and there's a minuscule airtime moment at the end. So there is that. It's okay. But as for the park itself, there's really not much to say on it. It's just a small area with 5 rides plopped down, mostly aimed at children. There is a train that I also did there. I see the Oakland area comments. I'll get to that. There was a train that I did ride. It basically takes you past some kangaroos and emus. So if you've never seen those, it might be worth doing. I think it's $6 though, and you just kind of go through a yard with those. And then everything else, there's like a carousel and mostly kiddie rides. So that's basically it. And as I mentioned, the zoo is not part of the admission. You'd have to pay separate to go to the zoo. I did go to it. As someone who likes zoos, I thought it was very good. Had a lot of modern exhibits, and they have a really nice new California Trail exhibit. You have to go up through gondolas. And you can have, there's also really good views from up there of the entire Bay Area. So that's really cool. But that's like anywhere from $19 to $32 on top of the money I just mentioned. But as for the comments I'm seeing, yeah, the Oakland area, it's not the best, certainly. I can certainly understand that. This zoo is actually up kind of in a mountain, so it's pretty hard for people to. You'd have to take quite the hike to get up there. I don't think it seemed pretty safe, just in terms of where the zoo was, just because it's in a like you have to drive up into a mountain pretty much. So in terms of that, I mean, it's not that much of an issue, I don't think. Um, but I mean, basically, and then yeah, plus $2,000 to replace your smashed in-car windows. Yeah, because I've definitely heard in some of the larger cities around me that people have had some not so great experiences with those sort of things. But as for, like I said, this parking lot is pretty inconvenient for people to get to, so I think this one is fine. Uh, Pretty much my recommendation as far as this park goes, if you're in NorCal, like you just live here and you haven't been and you just want to get the credit, like sure, I'd say worth visiting. And then if you want to go to the zoo as well, then yeah, definitely, because you can hit up what I think is a pretty nice zoo and also get a credit. So not a bad way to go. Otherwise, I don't really think it's worth going to because it's not super conveniently located. Because it's like halfway in between Discovery Kingdom and Great America, and it doesn't have the hours to make it visitable in at a point when one of those isn't open. Um, and it's just, I mean, it's just a little credit. So we will see. In terms, I mean, I just wouldn't go much further than that. But that's Oakland Zoo. Next credit place we're going to be talking about is Happy Hollow Park and Zoo. This is much better in terms of location. This is in San Jose, California, 10 miles south of California's Great America, so it's pretty darn close. Cost to get the credit, though, is $28, $18 admission, plus $10 parking. The coaster credit here is going to be Pacific Fruit Express, which is an E&F Mile or Kiddie coaster. I actually think this is a solid one. Has a nice first drop, little bit of airtime and lateral, solid scenery, 2 laps around. If that sounds worth $28 to you, then go ahead. And the park itself, it's very clean, nice looking, well landscaped. They do have an Aero train ride that I rode, Danny the Dragon. I think it's the only one of its kind. It's not anything that crazy, but it's got some charming theming. And it's, I think, the only one of its kind still around. Some other kids' rides as well. They have a decent collection of those. And they do have a zoo, but it's a very small collection of exhibits. They have like lemurs. They have a jaguar and red panda exhibit that were pretty much getting renovated when I was there, so I didn't see those. Along with like anteaters and wallabies. So you have that as well. But yeah, nearly $30 for a credit. Yeah, welcome to California in terms of some of these places to get a credit. But yeah, I mean, like I said, if like it's at least relatively close to Great America, so that's like the one good thing. And it's also open during the week. If you go on at a time of year when Great America and Discovery Kingdom are only open on weekends, like the reason I went here was I drove up on a Thursday and we were going to hit up parks that weekend, but none of the parks were open. So it's also good in that way that it's open during the week. But I would say if you're a California enthusiast, if you're in the area and you want to get the credit, and are willing to pay that much, you just want to get it, then sure. I think you could go and do it. And that's pretty much probably about it. And I guess if you're just in the area in general and you really want the credit that badly. So that's pretty much what I have to say. But like I said, park itself, very clean, nice looking, well landscaped, has some animal exhibits. If you have kids, there's definitely a decent amount to do there as well. So like I said, certainly I would say more of an overall like cohesive park than the previous one I mentioned, which is just a few rides. It's like actually a nice, well kept up park. Let's go through. For that price, I'd spend some time checking out what else they have. But yeah, Bay Area pricing. Yep, that's certainly it. And yeah, some of the Alpine coasters are crazy. The one in Park City, Utah was about that. Yeah, that is nuts. I didn't do any when I was in the Pigeon Forge area, partially for that reason, and also was limited on time. So But even those aren't, I think, that bad in terms of pricing. But yeah, that's pretty nuts. We'll move on to our next one, which is Adventure City. So this is definitely a more well-known park than those other two. This is famously 2 miles south of Knott's, so it's like very close. You can see Knott's from the park itself, and 5 miles east of Disneyland. This has 2 credits, the largest of which being Rewind Racers, which is a Gerstlauer family shuttle coaster. They also have Freeway Coaster, which is an E&F Miler kiddie coaster. And the cost to go to this park is about $30, basically. It's $29.95. There might be Coaster Club discounts. I don't know if those still exist. I'm not currently part of a Coaster Club, so also a little pricey, but at least you get 2 credits. And then you have the 2 coasters, which Rewind Racers. It's a very fun family shuttle coaster, has some good zip, 2 fun drops, and a nice S-hill as well. I like going through it backwards as well, so that's certainly good. One thing to note, though, is from what I've heard, I wasn't aware of this going in, but people have told me after I went, this coaster, Rewind Racers, opens an hour after opening, so that is worth noting. If you're trying to hit it at opening and getting both the credits, probably not a good way to go. Generally, I've heard that it opens an hour later. And then that's for Freeway Coaster, E&F Miler kiddie coaster that has a neat setting. It goes over a tree branch, a large tree branch, and has a little bit of rock work. Not very aggressive in terms of forces, even as far as E&F Miler kiddie goes, but it's pretty solid. I also rode the little kiddie drop tower. Had decent views, just because you could see Knott's in the distance. It was all right. They have some other rides as well, mostly for children and families. But if you're a California enthusiast, if you're driving through the area or revisiting Knott's, I think this can be lumped in. For anyone else, I mean, if you really want the credit, theoretically, you could take a break from Knott's and go here, but I would kind of caution that because you're taking time away from Knott's. But maybe you go on a week or a less busy day, although you'd have to probably check if Adventure City's actually open on those days, and you can lump it in. That might be a good route to go. And apparently Ace does have a very nice discount according to Civilian Satellite, so that's certainly worth noting. But yeah, it's solid little park for what it is. Definitely, like I said, more geared towards children, but it's got 2 nice credits. I would say, just as far as family and kiddie coasters go. Next, we'll move on to Belmont Park, which obviously this is in San Diego, 2 miles west of SeaWorld San Diego. It only costs $8 to get the credit if you just want to go in here, ride Giant Dipper once and leave. Only $8. Parking is free if you can get in the tiny parking lot, which I was able to do. I don't know how much parking is otherwise, but the park does have free parking. It's just the parking lot is absolutely tiny. But small but solid seaside park, had some cool lighting at night. I only rode Giant Dipper once, but I thought it was a really fun wooden coaster, especially post retracking, which I got to ride it pretty quickly after that. So that was nice. They also have some notable flat rides that I was not able to do, but they have like a flip out Moser gyro loop that inverts, which looks pretty fun. They have a frisbee style ride with Beach Blaster, along with a shooting dark rides sort of thing, I think from Triotech, and a few Moser drop towers as well, and some other rides. So $8 per ride, and then the wristbands are $49 to $55. I looked into it for this stream, so if you just wanted to go there and ride a bunch of stuff, that's how much it would cost. A bunch of the other attractions, like the mini golf, zip line, and ropes course, and laser tag, and the rock wall are also on the wristband, so that's kind of neat. I haven't seen a lot of other places with that, so I thought that was just something I would note. But, I mean, for me personally, I just went in here and got the credit after SeaWorld San Diego, and, I mean, if you're going to SeaWorld San Diego, I would definitely recommend lumping this in just to get the credit. It's a solid coaster, I think, post-retrack, so if nothing else, I definitely think if you're in the area going to SeaWorld San Diego, definitely do this park. And if you want to spend more time, I mean, that's up to you. I didn't experience that myself, but seems like there are at least some things to do there. So that's for sure. Um, let's see. Very solid park. Just wish they had one more coaster. Yeah, that is true. I definitely. I mean, I still think, like I said, it's it's worth going to just because it's very conveniently located, and literally popping in just to get the coaster is pretty darn easy to do. But yeah, I think it would be nice if they had another coaster. It seems like a park, honestly, that would benefit from an SBF spinner, even though we've seen a million of those. But like, just saying, if they ever wanted to do that, although they are pretty tight on space, so they definitely have to go with something compact. But would certainly be cool to see. That's for sure. All right, next we'll move on to, I would say, the last of our sort of little stop places. Although if you, I don't know if you would call this that, and that's Gilroy Gardens. This is in Gilroy, California, 39 miles south of California's Great America, 32 miles east of Santa Cruz Beach Boardwalk. A lot of people lump both this in and Santa Cruz in the same day. The cost of this park, at minimum, is going to be $65. That's $45 admission plus $20 parking. And depending on the day you go, this could be well over $80. So very much way more expensive than a lot of the other parks we've been talking about, just in terms of getting the credit. As far as the credits go, you have Quicksilver Express, which is the Morgan Mine Train, which unfortunately was actually down when I went. They hadn't updated the website yet. I should have called anyways. And I actually missed out on it, so that is unfortunate. I've heard it's a pretty good mine train though, so that would probably be worth riding. And then Timber Twister, Zero Tivoli coaster was solid, had a nice first drop. For the kind of coaster it was, and had a nice wooded setting, so those rides were solid. I'd also recommend doing the antique cars. They're just very nice scenery and setting. I thought they were cool. And then there's like two of them as well. Two different cars you can do. And then the Rainbow Garden Boats is like a nice scenic raft ride. So those are the other rides I did when I was there. I thought those were pretty good as far as like just nice rides, scenic rides at the park. They also have a monorail that's usually closed. And they have some kind of meme-worthy fruit and vegetable themed rides. Like they have a garlic twirl teacups and mushroom swing and others. Banana split boat, which I would have done, but it was also closed. So the website generally seems to be pretty good from what I've seen. They have like all the stuff in place to like be updated with ride closures, and I think they even added like some extra things since I left. So I would definitely check the website before you go. And then maybe also call the park just in case. But that's probably just more so from my own experience. But on the website, they do have a list of stuff that was closed. It's just, like I said, they hadn't updated the closure of the mine train, unfortunately, before I went. But as far as this park goes, really well landscaped. It's a beautiful park. If you like gardens, also this could kind of push it up into being worthwhile. A lot of nice greenery and impressive trees. They have some really crazy looking ones. But like I said, would definitely check the website in terms of what rides are open and closed. Because there was a decent amount on the Easter weekend that I went. Surprising amount, actually. And then my recommendation for it, if you're a California enthusiast near the area and you want to check out the park to get the credits, or you like nature and gardens, or you have young kids with you, this definitely seems to be a park where that's good for. This park definitely would be worth considering if you really wanted to do it. And then for other enthusiasts, unless you like gardens a lot or you really want to get the credits, I'd probably advise not doing this on a NorCal trip. If you do, though, you could probably lump it in with Santa Cruz Beach Boardwalk, as long as that park's open late. So if you are going to do that, that's probably the route I would go. But personally, I would probably just either get a later start or just go to or just spend more time at Santa Cruz. But if you really want the credits, that would probably be the way to go. But Airtime Thrills has done this in Santa Cruz on the same day, super easy. But you went when you had the Cedar Fair part passes, which yeah, that's good because I think Great America still has. I think I looked at theirs. I think they actually may still have some season passes that also get admission Gilroy Gardens, but the overall Cedar Fair pass no longer does, from my understanding. Um, and yeah, so this is definitely a park that's harder to justify post it now not being operated by Cedar Fair. Beforehand, yeah, super easy to lump in, just do it, and Santa Cruz, no questions. Like even if you had to pay for parking, so be it. But now it's definitely a little bit more of a trek. Um, Maybe some coaster clubs have some discounts. I would also maybe look into that if you're looking to go. Um, as well. Welcome to the chat, JB Thrills and Maverick114E. Happy to hear that you, Maverick, had a good time at IAPA. And good to see you here, JB Thrills. I saw you were over at Over Texas today, so that sounds fun. But we'll move on to our next park in terms of rankings. My next park I have is Disney's Animal Kingdom. So I was able to visit all the Disney World parks for the first time this year. I'm not going to talk about the pricing and whatnot because you know these parks are expensive, but these are destination parks. So I feel like these are a little different. The reason why this ranks the lowest currently for me is I spent the least amount of time here out of all the parks. I only spent about 6 hours on one of the 3 days I was there. And I actually didn't see many of the animals and didn't go into the Africa section at all. I missed Kilimanjaro Safaris and Cali River Rapids. And I also didn't get to do the actual Expedition Everest Q line. I did it through Single Rider, which I've heard. Yes, also, these parks in my overall rankings, like, yes, I know massive jump from Gilroy to Disney. Animals Kingdom is nowhere near in my overall park rankings, Gilroy Gardens, so wanted to mention that. I know it's kind of jarring. But Animal Kingdom is actually your top Disney World park. I think it would rank higher than some of the other ones. It's just out of all the ones I did, it was the one I experienced. I experienced the least of, if that makes sense. And I love zoos, and I hardly got to see any of the animal stuff. So that definitely would factor in a ton if I was able to experience that. But sacrifices had to be made when I'm cutting my visit that short. And the park itself, I'll give it credit. It's one of the most beautifully landscaped parks I've ever been to. The Asia area, from what I saw, was very neat looking. And then Pandora itself is just an absolutely gorgeous themed area with a nice duo of attractions. And I thought the restaurant there, Satuli Canteen, was quite good too. My favorite ride here was Dinosaur on the bottom right. Though that's going to be the rides that are my favorite. Which I am sad to see it go. I know it's being converted into Indiana Jones, which will obviously be awesome when it does. But man, Dinosaur feels more chaotic in terms of ride movements. At least I felt than our Dinosaur here. I think it's also helped by how much of it is in the dark, but it's so good. So I definitely love that. Expedition Everest was a really fun coaster as well. The theming, the scale of it's like really grand. Absolutely love that. Flight of Passage was quite good, but I'm not as big on it as other people because it's just not the kind of ride system I'm the biggest fan of. But for a flying simulator, it's absolutely excellent. And Navi River Journey is an alright ride. You mostly ride it for the one animatronic that's in there, but that animatronic is incredible. So definitely makes the ride worthwhile. And then I also did It's Tough to Be a Bug. I put that in here because if you're going to Animal Kingdom and you haven't done this yet before the show goes, it's this Bugs Life themed show that's underneath the Tree of Life. Go do it. It's especially if you're with friends or something. It's hilarious. It's this show that has, it's a 3D show that has physical animatronics and also just other physical pieces. And it's trauma. It's like pretty scary, actually. It scares a lot of kids. Your theater will probably just be filled with screaming and crying children, and I think it's funny. But it's also like, I think it's actually legitimately a well done show. though it's a real roller coaster of emotions and pacing, which just makes it even better. But I think it's awesome, and I'm really sad that it's going away because I think it's an awesome show. But yeah, the ones with the spiders coming from the ceiling, yes, that is the show. Yes, I think it's awesome. Um, but I know that yeah, a lot of people, even still, are not the biggest fan of it. Just because it's a lot to handle, especially for something that is themed to Bug's Life. It's kind of nuts. Although that movie has definitely some moments in it on its own, but that attraction just takes it to a different level. Um, yeah, if you don't like bugs, then maybe don't do it. That's because it's definitely traumatizing if you don't like it. Um, let's see. Bucket list at Animal Kingdom is Expedition Everest. It's a great coaster. Like I said, I prefer Dinosaur. Just I mean, I love Indiana Jones. It's the same ride system. I prefer Indiana Jones, but I mean, Dinosaur is still awesome in its own way. But Expedition Everest is definitely a very good ride. It's my second favorite ride there, for sure, that I was able to do. Um, and yeah, Flight of Passage, you agree, was overhyped. Yeah, I mean, I didn't go in with the expectations it was going to be one of the world's best dark rides just because I knew what the ride system was. So I'm like, yeah, I probably will be a little lower on it, but it's still a great ride. You still have great memories from when it was Countdown to Extinction. That's cool. Um, oh, interesting. Yeah, Flick seemed to be working fine when I was there, but yeah, that would make it even more cursed. That I think that would add to the atmosphere, not subtract from it. So that's pretty cool. But anyways, that's Disney's Animal Kingdom. We'll move on to Magic Kingdom, which is going to come in at number three. I mean, I have Disneyland as my number one overall park, so obviously Magic Kingdom is not as good, and I think a lot of people kind of judge it based on that merit. But I think there are a lot of good qualities here. For one, this park has the most rides and capacity of any of the Disney World parks, so you know that's certainly good. I think one of the things that I mostly notice with these parks is they do struggle with capacity compared to our parks here in California. So just because they don't quite have as much to do, but I felt Magic Kingdom was well equipped in that regard, though it does deal with the highest crowds usually. So definitely has some give and take there. Discount Disneyland. Timu Disneyland. I mean, you're not entirely wrong, but I mean this park. I will say in terms of I think the other parks have truly elite rides, whereas this park doesn't. Even though Space Mountain, which is my favorite ride here, is awesome. I still prefer Hours just because of the overall soundtrack and vibe. I think I just love the overall atmosphere of Hours better, but the Space Mountain here at Magic Kingdom is way more chaotic and just unhinged and crazy in terms of the airtime you get, and it's still absolutely excellent. So Space Mountain, that's my favorite ride here. In terms of other great rides, Tron Light Cycle Run, that was my 200th coaster. Really love that. I'm higher, I think, than a lot of people on it. Got a front row night ride, and that launch in the front row, especially with the weird seating setup. Honestly, one of my favorite non-hydraulic launches on any coaster, just because of the weird sensation being in that position. And the theming and the soundtrack's also really great in the indoor sections as well. And there's even a few sort of, I think, banked hills that have a little bit of airtime, which even though it's not that strong, the fact that you're in the motorbike position makes it a lot weirder and more unique of a sensation. So I did really like that. Big Thunder Mountain Railroad was fun. It's the same as Disneyland's, just with worse theming and a trick track section. So layout's better, theming far worse. So I prefer Hours at Disneyland. Haunted Mansion was great. Pirates of the Caribbean is a lot worse than Hours, but as a boat ride, it's still very good. You just would have to, just pretend that the other one doesn't exist. Seven Dwarfs Mine Train I thought was fun. Carousel of Progress I think is actually worth doing, just because it's very classic and meaningful attraction and has some funny dialogue. And the People Mover is also cool. And so a lot of great rides to do. I did miss out on Tiana's Bayou Adventure because it would have messed with the virtual queue for Guardians because I went to Magic Kingdom on the days I went to Epcot. I also didn't do Barnstormer. And then most of the other rides that I didn't mention that I've done the Disneyland versions of, I didn't do most of those. So yeah, that's Magic Kingdom in general. Cosmic Rays, actually, its restaurant was also pretty good. But just going through the comments here. Magic Kingdom was your least favorite for a long time, but you actually had a great time the last time you went here. Went back for Tron. Yeah, I think Tron definitely adds a decent bit. It seems like so. I think that definitely was a great addition. Let's see. You did it, but you did drop $750 for the family to go back there next year. Oh my gosh. Yeah, no, it is expensive. I mean, I went just individually on my own and did 3 days of park hoppers, and the tickets on its own came out to over $700. Part of that was because one of the days was not expected, and I didn't add it as like I did 2 park hopper days and got a package that way, and then I did one later, which that had I known I was gonna go a third day, I wouldn't have done that. But there you go. I know a lot of people do find Tron to be disappointing, which that partially probably led to why I liked it a lot better than most, just because I kind of had lowered expectations. I didn't think it had a rattle, but and yeah, the pacing is a little broken up. That's for sure. Although I don't mind it on that much on Rocket either, funnily enough, but that's fair in your case. Seven Dwarfs Mine Train, I think a lot of people bash on it just because of how long you have to wait. I still think as far as mine trains go, it's one of the better ones. It's just, you have to wait a long time for it. But I still think it's solid. It's just, I think, overrated just because of how long you have to wait for it. Though I do think the dwarf projections are bad. They just need to replace those with actual animatronic faces. That definitely would be a big help. Yeah, Space Mountain, it's like a Wild Mouse, but better in almost every way. That's a good, honestly, comp. Honestly, it's basically just an indoor Wild Mouse on steroids. I think is a decent comparison. But yeah. I have been able to do Splash Mountain at Disneyland, so I do have that. Obviously never did it at Disney World, and I'll have to eventually do Tiana's at some point. But yeah, the single day tickets, if you just do a park per day, it's not that insane. I mean, it is kind of, but it's not that bad. But because I did park hopper and that was the plan, that's why it got as bad as it was. Big Thunder does have good theming. It's just in comparison to the Disneyland one, ours has far better theming because there's some, especially the lift hill in the tunnel is where ours is a lot better than the Magic Kingdom one, but there's other differences as well. But the overall theming is good. It's just one of those things where it's one of those things where because I've experienced another one that's better, I'm definitely biased in that way. I didn't have issues with restraints or the way I rode along the track, but I'm sure, but that's fair, for sure. And then Tron and Seven Dwarfs are your only missing credits. That's pretty good then. That certainly is. Yeah, go ride at Splash at Tokyo. Yeah, who knows how long that's gonna last. There's been some rumors on the forums about how long that's gonna last, but I definitely would like to do that at some point. But yeah, that's gonna wrap it up for Magic Kingdom. As for our second park, we have Disney's Hollywood Studios, which part of my review of this, I didn't actually do the Star Wars Galaxy's Edge area here, but I'm applying my experience from Disneyland over pretty much. And that's why Rise of the Resistance is my favorite ride here on the bottom right, even though I didn't actually do it at Hollywood Studios. I mean, if I did do it, it would have been my favorite ride in the entire resort. I think it's an absolutely incredible overall experience and dark ride. Even if it is themed to the sequel trilogy that I'm not the biggest fan of, it doesn't take away from how incredible of a ride it is. So, I mean, that's going to be my favorite ride here. But in terms of the rides I actually experienced, the one in the main picture, Tower of Terror, was my favorite. I do prefer Guardians at California Adventure just because of its more crazy and chaotic drop cycle, but the extra element that this one has is, in comparison to what our Tower of Terror used to have and Guardians, definitely adds an extra layer to the ride experience that I appreciate. I just love the overall theme and storyline of Tower of Terror. So, yeah, I would hope they don't I don't want this one to get rethemed, that's for sure, because the only reason, like, I prefer Guardians to Tower of Terror is, I mean, yes, theme, you know, I think the theme is actually well done at DCA, but the main reason is not theming related, so I don't think retheming it would change my opinion. So I really hope it stays. Some other great rides here. Mickey and Minnie's. I never done the one at Disneyland because I last went in 2021, but that was an excellent dark ride. Absolutely loved it. Can't wait to experience ours at Disneyland because I've heard it's even a smidge better. So that was excellent. I did Rock and Roller Coaster. Thought it was a pretty fun coaster, but honestly kind of lower on the list of the Disney World coasters. Just because, honestly, outside of the launch, which was quite good, and the first few inversions, you just kind of are meandering around some cutouts. I don't think the theming is as well done as the other coasters. It's still a fun atmosphere for sure, but I just think I enjoy the other rides more. You got Toy Story Midway Mania as well, and I did enjoy Slinky Dog Dash because I did it at night with the lighting package as well. But and I did also eat at Woody's Lunchbox, had brisket sandwich, that was very tasty, so would recommend that as well. But going through the comments, let's see. Yeah, Rise of the Resistance is probably the best dark ride in the Florida Disney property, but you think it heavily relies a little bit too much on pre-shows. That's fair. Definitely has a lot of those incorporated into the experience. And when you're rewriting it, you know, trying to get rewrites, that's you know, you don't necessarily feel like you want to do that every time. So that's actually fair. I've only ridden it twice though, so I don't have that issue. And actually, the first time we actually went through some of the pre-show stuff because it was right after COVID reopening. So I've actually only ridden it once with like the whole pre-show package, pretty much. Tower of Terror seemed black compared to Guardians. Like, it's just from a drop cycle standpoint, certainly. So I could certainly see that. And I mean, as I mentioned, Guardians I do prefer overall. So I would definitely say it's better, but I want Twilight Zone Tower of Terror to keep its theme over in Hollywood Studios. Yeah, that top three is like insane. That's part of the reason why it's, even though it's mostly just the rides. I mean, the rides they have are so good, and even the other ones I mentioned would probably be like 8 of the 9 rides they have would probably be top 20 in the entire resort. Definitely out of the ones I'd done, and even if I got to experience some of the missed ones, it probably would still be pretty close. So that's pretty insane. Let's see what else. Yeah, Runaway Railway blew you away. I mean, yeah, I was stunned by it. That really was, honestly, that was probably the biggest surprise ride of the trip, because I thought it was going to be good, but it's especially because I had ridden Remy's Ratatouille Adventure previously, which disappointed me so much. I was just so incredibly impressed by just how much better it was and how well it utilized the its ride system and how dynamic it was. So I do wish I was able to ride the Great Movie ride for sure, but Mickey and Minnie's is awesome. We'll certainly say that. Slinky, I think once again it's kind of more of a cute ride, which is why like waiting super long for it isn't ideal. I think I had to wait about 45 minutes for it, which is actually pretty good, all things considering. And I definitely think I enjoyed it a lot more doing it at night with the lighting package. So I think that was definitely a big part of it. But my number one park I visited this year is going to be Epcot over at Disney World, as all these parks are. And this was without Test Track. Test Track was under refurb when I was there. I also missed out on Frozen Ever After and didn't do the Moana walkthrough, though that was certainly something I did want to try. But I think the big thing with Epcot, for one, despite the ride collection not being as impressive as the other parks, they do have the best coaster and, in my opinion, the second best ride on the resort property in Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind, which I have very high in my overall coaster rankings. So that certainly is able to help it out, just having that kind of standout ride. Definitely will be happy also whenever they get rid of the virtual queue system, but I was able to experience it 3 times throughout my visit, which was very fortunate. But that's an absolutely excellent coaster. Just love how long it is. And I got 3 different songs as well. Disco Inferno, One Way or Another, and I Ran were the songs I got. I thought Disco Inferno and I Ran were pretty good. One Way or Another I did not vibe with. I did not think it fit very well off the ride, but that's a kind of polarizing song from what I've heard, so we'll see there. Spaceship Earth, as far as other rides go, Spaceship Earth was really cool to do. Insane they were able to fit a ride like that in the Epcot ball. It's just crazy. I did Mission Space Orange, which I thought was a lot of fun. I can see why people wouldn't like it, but I actually thought that was actually another pleasant surprise ride. I thought that was pretty cool. And then they have some other nice, fun attractions. I mean, as much as Remy's Ratatouille Adventure disappointed me, it's still a solid trackless dark ride. It's just definitely compared to the other dark rides at the resort that are newer, it's definitely lower. That's for sure. And then Living with the Land, Grand Fiesta Tour, like those are nice rides as well. I did the American Adventure Show as well, which is actually pretty cool. It has some animatronics that were very impressive considering how long ago those were made. And then being able to check out the World Showcase pavilions. I didn't get to all of them, but that definitely was really cool. And then I got to check out the Seas Aquarium, which is one of the largest aquariums in the entire United States. So that was also very neat to see. So there's a lot here to do that aren't just the rides. Just from walking around, looking at the different pavilions, especially the World Showcase. Like I said, the aquarium. It's a park that when I revisit it, I probably won't do that many rides. Like I'll probably do Guardians, Test Track, and maybe Frozen, honestly, just to get those done. And I'll mostly spend my time doing other stuff, which I think is really cool. So I definitely really like this park. All these parks are honestly extremely close in my rankings, and upon a revisit, they could definitely switch around. In fact, I bet Animal Kingdom will rise in my rankings once I get a revisit, but that's how the list ended up being. So that is the countdown for all the parks I visited this year. And then I will be moving on to, actually I'll get to like last comments and I'll move on to talking about the bingo cards and then the Guess the Coaster game, which will follow afterwards. So let's see. There's a lot of comments for Epcot, so I need to catch up. Let's see. Yeah, Cosmic Rewind is a blast. Living with the Land, #1 Walt Disney World attraction. It has its charm, and I did get to experience it with the Christmas lights, so that was pretty cool. So there you go. That was pretty interesting. I did do Journey into Imagination with Figment. I'm not gonna lie, as far as some of the meme rides I've done recently, I didn't think it was as good as like Cat in the Hat at Universal, for example. And I mean, I just, it was all right, but I think it only gets kind of really insane toward the end, and it's only for a short period. So, I thought Figment was annoying, but and that's probably sacrilegious, but I mean, that is kind of his thing. So, it was all right. Yeah, Cosmic Rewind was um, really, really great. I know in terms of an addition to the park, in terms of how it fits, a lot of people have complained about it, but yeah, our Disney World park rankings are almost completely flipped upside down. That's funny. Like I said, this would probably change a lot upon revisits. And like I said, Animal Kingdom, I guarantee it wouldn't be, I can almost guarantee it wouldn't be the lowest. It's just the amount I was able to experience kind of made it that. So, Epcot, they do have a China Pavilion. They already do have some attractions. I think if they were to get a Mulan attraction, it would have happened a while ago. So probably not going to happen. Um, the Frozen Boat, yeah, I wanted to do it. It's just the line was really long, and one of those sacrifices that had to be made. I had heard good things about it, and I would have liked to have done Maelstrom way back in the day, but I wish. I did actually get to try some food at the food and or well, one item at the Food and Wine Festival. Um, I didn't have the beef and mashed potatoes, but I did have. I think it was the yeah, steakhouse blended burger. It was this burger with like cheese fondue and mushrooms. That was actually, even though it was lighter and pretty expensive for how small it was really good. So that was cool. That was another thing I wish I could have experienced a little bit more of that, but that would have cost a lot. The wine festival sounds like as tight about Great Adventure. That's the truth. Also see that civilian satellite you're heading out, but nice to have you here. And I am actually going to Italy, so whenever, pretty quick here. So I will be able to see if Via Napoli is able to compare when I go back to Disney World, maybe next year, assuming that happens. But I'll actually be able to have some pizza in Italy, so I'm excited about that pretty soon. Um, but yeah, good to have you here. And then I think that is pretty much most of the things that I've seen in terms of the comments. Um, yeah, the funny thing is Hollywood Studios, the last day I went there was the day before they announced the Muppets and Rock and Roller Coaster changes. So that was I did do Muppet Vision 3D just because I had heard rumors that it was on its way out. So fortunately, I was able to do that. I don't have a lot to say on it, but I mean, I'm just happy I did it. And then Rock and Roller Coaster, I really wish I had known prior because I just rode it single rider and gotten random rows. I would have tried to get a front row ride had I known that they were going to change it. But that's, at least I was able to do it. So it just was, it just was a little unfortunate I couldn't have gotten that front row ride. So next we'll move on to kind of reviewing our bingo. So for those who are new, if you follow me on Instagram, you'll definitely have seen the updates on this. But if you didn't watch the stream last year, I introduced this bingo card that I'll bring up right here. Of things that I kind of had predicted to happen in 2024. Here was the list I had. You can see the several different things that I had as part of it. But I can officially show, or not officially, because technically there could be some things that change over the next few days, but ideally this is complete. If there is anything that changes, I'll update it over on Instagram. But we do have our bingo card pretty much done in terms of what happened and what didn't. I was able to get one bingo, that middle row, through Montezuma not reopening this year. Fire Runner getting announced at Lost Island, that filled out the RMC spot. I had a free space, but I just added something, but that was it. Six Flags permanent coaster closure, that happened in spades. And then All-American Triple Loop did finally open, so that was the bingo that was completed. You can see several other spots that were also hit, along with some that weren't. Probably the most unfortunate one was Magic Mountain, just because they did announce a new coaster, but it's for 2026. If I just said announced a new coaster, it would have been good, but because I said specifically for 2025, that's why that one did not hit. The other debatable one that is listed as green is a food-themed train being shown at IAAPA 2024. So while a train wasn't shown, I put it to a vote if the Hershey Park SNS swinging attraction, Scream and Swing, gondola counted, and it was voted overwhelmingly yes, so that's why that's filled. Yeah, so that is the bingo in terms of how it came out, just in total. More hits than misses, which I'm happy to see. Counting the free space, there were 14 hits and 11 misses, which brings me over to our new bingo card, which obviously looks a lot different, making it look a little more graphically or just aesthetically pleasing. Yeah, Great Adventure definitely got the short end of the stick this year. That is indeed correct. But these are some of the predictions that I have listed for the bingo card. Now, some of the more grim ones, if I'm wrong on them, I will be happy. That's for sure. But I am hoping in general to have a better year this year than last year, even though last year was pretty good in terms of getting predictions correct. But here is the new list, as you can see here. Airtime Thrills actually in the stream. I don't know if he headed out, but is a part of this. I know your channel is close to 100K, about 7K away, 6K away, something like that. So threw that in here as one of the slots. That definitely, I'm rooting for you to hit 100K. Definitely worth it. But as I mentioned, yeah, I should hit 100K at your current pace. That's like kind of why I included it. Because I had my own milestones for last year. One of them I hit, one of them I didn't. I do have one in for this year, but I was like, well, also wanted to include someone else that made sense, and this seemed to be one to do. Animals getting loose at a park, you can help with that? Well, yeah, I'd very much appreciate it. Although, I mean, if Cedar Point is able to deliver, I may not need much help with that, if they can deliver again. So, but yeah, here's the list. I will also post this on Instagram, so if you, and update like the bingo card as we go throughout the year on there. But obviously some pretty interesting ones. I do have Great America having its last season, which is definitely very grim. Along with some other just interesting closures, animals getting loose at a park, Hollow Madrid POV releasing finally, along with several others. So we'll see how this one does. Yeah, at Dream World in Australia, the animals just roam free on their own. That's fair. That's a good point. That won't help me, but good to know. I actually had not known that, but I guess they do have, that park does have an animal aspect to it, so that makes sense. But yeah, we'll move on to our Guess the Coaster game, which will, I think I see that there's a lot of people in here who've never played this before. And actually, I can kind of bring up, I have a rules basically for this. So let me bring it up. So basically how this works, I will come up with a roller coaster that I will find an RCB. It has to be a notable enough one that's like realistic for somebody to get. And then you'll ask yes or no questions in the chat to about the coaster, which will basically serve as clues. I'll answer the questions, and that'll get us closer to getting to the coaster. And the first person in the chat who's able to guess the coaster wins the round. There will be 8 rounds of this, so that's pretty much the game. And I do have my first coaster, so guess away in the chat, and we will pretty much go from there. So that'll be the plan. So guess the coaster, ask your questions in the chat, and we'll see who gets it first. This coaster is not in the US, so we do have, if you live in the US, an international coaster. It is not in the Six Flags chain. So far we have an international coaster outside of the US that is not a Six Flags park. That is pretty much what we have so far. It does have a spike element. That is a great question. Yes, it does have a spike element. So we do have an international coaster with a spike element. It is not in Europe, though. So international coaster with a spike element, but it is not in the US, and it is not in Europe. So it is not Zokon at Fuji-Q Highland, but I like the shot in the dark. It is not Soaring with Dragon, and it is not an Intamin. So far we still have a international coaster with a spike element. Manufacturer and location has not been determined yet. It is not Shuttle Loop at Nagashima Spa Land. So not that. And it is not in Asia. So far we have ruled out Asia, Europe, and the United States as the location for this coaster. And like I said, it's an international coaster with a spike element. It is not a B&M coaster. So, and, well, Airtime Thrills got it. It is Steel Taipan Taipan at Dreamworld in Australia. That is the correct answer. I did get an RCDB, so it was just really random that we were just talking about Dreamworld and it came up. But yes, that is the correct answer. So Chris is on the board with a point. And I will get my next coaster pretty quickly here. That's a great guess, though. Just very, very weird that it happened to be very closely related to what we were talking about earlier. Alrighty, it's taking me a little bit. Alright, I do have my next coaster. Guess away. Let's see what questions we have in here. It is a wooden coaster, and it is in the US. So we do have a US wooden coaster. It is not a straddle coaster. You can rule that out. So US wooden coaster is what we have so far. It is not a GCI. However, it is a CCI, so we do have a CCI wooden coaster, and it is not named after an animal. So has nothing to do with an animal in its name, but we do have a CCI wooden coaster. It is not Ghost Rider. So CCI wooden coaster in the US. Let's see, it is east of the Mississippi, so east of the Mississippi River. It is not Judge Roy Scream. It is not Boulder Dash. Not Coastersaurus. Yeah, because that has an animal tie in its name. It's not Shivering Timbers. It is not Rampage. Going through the list, but it's none of those. Once again, CCI wooden coaster in the US, east of the Mississippi River. So that's what we have so far. And is not have a name that's associated with an animal. It is not Hoosier Hurricane. It's not Boss. So neither of those. It is not Cornball Express. So far, still no one has gotten it. It is not Lost Coaster, and it is not Legend. So, no one has gotten it yet. It is not Woodstock Express. I don't think we have a CCI Woodstock Express. Although, what's its name? Tomahawk at Port Adventure is like is kind of close. Excalibur is correct. Yep, Excalibur at Funtown Splashtown USA in Maine is the correct answer. So Airtime Thrills has 2 points on the board. So we'll move on to our next round, and I do have my coaster for that. So guess away. I will just say straight off the bat, this one is definitely easier than the last two we've gotten. So I think this will probably be a pretty quick round. So, like I said, any tips or questions, you have the opportunity to guess the next coaster. It is indeed a B&M coaster, but it is, so we can rule out any other manufacturer. It's a B&M. And it is in the US, so we have a US B&M coaster, which honestly doesn't narrow it down a lot, but it doesn't feature any inversions, which that narrows it down already quite a bit. Definitely does run more than 2 trains. So we have a B&M coaster without inversions in the US. I think the running 2 trains is obvious at that point. It is not over 300 feet, so can rule that out. It is not Batman the Ride. So far we have a US B&M coaster without inversions that is under 300 feet. It is not Thunder Striker, but it is in the Six Flags chain, as in the newly merged Six Flags chain. It is not Nitro. It is not Penguin Trek. Good guess, though. And Airtime Thrills got it again. It is Diamondback at Kings Island. So that is the correct answer. Chris is on a roll with 3 straight points. That is incredible. I don't think we've had anyone have a start that good. Not going to use it, but I just randomly got Pacific Fruit Express from Happy Hollow Park and Zoo, which is the park I mentioned earlier. But alrighty, I do have my next coaster. Guess away. 3-peat, like what the Chiefs are going to do this year. Yep, that is for sure. But I do have my next coaster, so you can guess away in the chat. It is from a defunct manufacturer. These are some great questions that are really narrowing it down in terms of the spike earlier was like a really good question. But it is indeed from a defunct manufacturer. Yeah, the Chiefs will definitely, they will win on like a muffed doinked field goal. Some of the ones they've been getting are just insane. It is from Arrow, so this coaster is an Arrow coaster. I don't know how its reputation is. I haven't specifically heard that it's that rough. I don't think it's like notorious for it, but if some people think it is, I wouldn't know. But I don't think it's notoriously rough, so I have not ridden it though, so that may be a tip. It is not international, so this is a US coaster, a US Aero coaster. So not in Europe. We can rule out it being outside the US and any other manufacturers because it's an Aero. It is not at Carowinds, and it is not Viper at Darien Lake. So neither of those. It is, welcome to the chat, Jace. It is not a custom looper. So this is a more common model than that. It is not a mine train either. It's not Viper at Magic Mountain or any Viper of any sort. We already had Darien Lake. It does have inversions. It is a corkscrew. All right, Philip, I'll give you a point. It is corkscrew. Name the park it's at. I will split it up into 2 points. So Philip gets a point. Corkscrew is the name of the coaster. Whoever can come up with the name of the park it is at, I will give another one. Because there's a few options. It's not Valley Fair, and Philip got it. Again, it is Corkscrew at Silverwood is the correct answer. So Philip, you get 2 points from that. I forget if I actually have that listed, but I've done this a few times when we've had it in terms of identifying the park and it being separate points. But that's a great find there. Yeah, Philip has 2 points now. That'll bring us into round 5, so now over the halfway point. I do have my next coaster. Airtime Thrills does say that it does run really well, so that's good to see. Yeah, that's why I was like, I haven't heard like complaints about it being rough, so at least in relation to some other ones, because Corkscrew at Cedar Point, for example, doesn't run the best, and so I would, and I have ridden that, so I would say that runs rough, but I haven't really heard that for Silverwoods. And the one at Michigan's Adventure was a being piled dumpster fire, fair enough. But I have the next coaster, so I will answer questions once those come in. You've ridden both the Cedar Point and Nagashima corkscrews. They were okay. All right, that's good to hear as far as Nagashima's goes. It is a U.S. coaster, so we have another coaster in the U.S. That is, it is not defunct. It is currently operating. It is not a B&M, so we have, it is a U.S. coaster, and it's still operating is pretty much all we have. And we've ruled out B&M as a manufacturer because they didn't do this one. This coaster, so you do invert on this coaster, but the track itself doesn't have inversions, which is probably kind of a potential giveaway. But you do invert on this coaster, so in that sense it has inversions, but the track layout itself does not. Or at least it doesn't list it as having it on RCDB. So that is a potential hint. It's not a launch coaster, not a hyper. It is not under 75 feet tall, but it is a steel coaster. It is not X2. It is not a Vekoma. It is not an SBF Visa spinner, but that's fair. It is a free spin, but it's not Joker. So it is not any of the Jokers anywhere. But we do have SNS 40 free spin at this point as a hint. It is not Batman the Ride. It is not Dragon Slayer. Airtime Thrills got it. It is Chumbili, a King's Dominion. So Airtime Thrills now has a 4th point as we head into round 6. And I will get the next coaster. This is an interesting one. All right. I do have my next coaster. Guess away. This one will be, I think, potentially more tricky than the previous ones we've gotten. Well, actually, certainly some of the previous ones we've gotten. So, is it interesting? I mean, I don't know if the coaster itself is actually that interesting. I'm just more interested to see how quickly this one gets guessed. But I suppose yes, because I said it. It is not in Europe. It is not an Intamin coaster. So far, we just have that it's interesting. It's not in Europe. It's not from Intamin. Is it blue? For part of its life, from the pictures I can see, it did have blue as part of its color scheme, but it doesn't look like it always did. So, would this coaster land in your top 100? Probably not. No, yeah, no, it would not. This coaster would not land in your top 100. Um, I don't think. Although it kind of, in a way, it would, but no, it would not. It is in the U.S. So we do have a U.S. coaster that at one point had blue as part of its color scheme. It is not yeah, U.S. coaster. It is from before 1993. It is a Six Flags coaster. Yes, in a way it would. You'll understand. You'll understand. Once someone gets it, you'll understand what I mean. Um, but it is a Six Flags coaster. That's does it have ratcheting restraints? I mean, I believe so. So, let me look. Um, I'm gonna say I think it did, but I can't 100% confirm. It is not La Vibora. It is at a legacy Six Flags park, so pre Cedar Fair merger. So, so far we have a legacy Six Flags coaster that had blue as part of its color scheme. That's pretty much it. Runaway Mountain, no, it's not at Over Texas. It's not Shockwave. Yeah, this might take a while. If the questions that are being asked, or specifically like people trying to guess it, you're not gonna be able to guess it just out of random guesswork right now. I will tell you that you're gonna need more hints. It is not Whizzer. It is not at Magic Mountain. It is not. It is considered. Yes, it would be considered to be a thrill coaster. It is not at Six Flags St. Louis. It is not at Six Flags Over Georgia. It is not active. This is a defunct coaster. So this is a defunct coaster. So that's a big one. It is over 100 feet tall. Not an intimate. I think I answered that earlier. So we do have a defunct coaster that's over 100 feet tall in the Legacy Six Flags chain. Hello, Beyond Thrills. Hope you've been having a good holiday season. And things have been good for you. So thanks for checking out the stream. It is not Zonga. It is not at Six Flags Great Adventure. It is not an Aero coaster. So the run through, so far we have, this is a Legacy Six Flags coaster that's defunct, was from before 1993, and is over 100 feet tall. So that is what we have so far for this coaster. It is wooden, so that's a big one. So we do have that established. So we have a defunct wooden coaster in the Legacy Six Flags chain, built before 1993. That is over 100 feet tall. No inversions, not Colossus, not Mega Zeph, but it did get RMC'd. So that was why it kind of explains my answer a bit. Because as the RMC'd coaster, this coaster, I know for sure Chris is in your top 100. But in its state prior, I don't think it would have been. So it is not a Din coaster. It is not Rattler, not Colossus, not Texas Giant, not Twisted Cyclone, nor the Georgia Cyclone. But Philip got it. It is Cyclone. At Six Flags New England, would have also taken Riverside Cyclone. is the correct answer. And so Philip now has 3 points as we head into round 7. So it's basically, in terms of the battle for first place, it's between Chris and Philip, and but I mean everyone else is pretty much playing for fun at this point. So there you go. Yeah, Wicked Cyclone. I have never ridden it. No, you can join. Anyone can join. It's just based on the chat, so anyone can join the Guess the Coaster game. So I do have my next coaster, so make sure to guess away. I did mention the coaster was defunct, but it does make it more tricky when trying to guess the rides. But this is going to be round 7 of Guess the Coaster, so ask your questions in the chat to try to figure it out, and we will go from there. Trying to see, my phone was like kind of blowing up earlier. It's just football notifications, it looks like. So I'm in a fantasy championship this week, although not in the enthusiast league, obviously, for those of you who are in that. Let's see, it is not in the US, it is not steel, so this is a wooden coaster, and it is in Europe. So we do have a wooden coaster in Europe. It has never been it's never been relocated. Championship, what's that like? Actually, what is the championship? And I didn't even look and see what the championship in our league is, but I'll have to check it real quick. In that league, who's fighting for first place? Just curious. Oh, okay, I see. Let's see. I have not been on this coaster. This is not a GCI coaster. It is not. The 8th seed made the championship. That's nuts. So for those who don't know, me and Chris are in a enthusiast fantasy league, and there's 16 teams, and 8 of them are able to go to the playoffs for that reason. 16 teams also is brutal, by the way. I missed the playoffs in that league though, so. In the money league, I am in the championship, though, so that's what matters. Not an Intamin Woody, it is not defunct, and it is not Zadra. So, just to recap, we do have a wooden coaster in Europe. Zadra, despite claiming itself as a wooden coaster, would not count. We have yet to identify a manufacturer, although, to be honest, I don't know that you would be able to, so you might just want to not go with that. This coaster does not run PTCs. It does not. It is not Loop Guru. So yeah, all we have pretty much is a wooden coaster in Europe that is still operating. But it was built before 1950, so we are talking a very old wooden coaster because it is pre-1950. It is not Megaphobia. It's not from RCCA. So not either of those. And I mentioned I have not ridden this coaster, although I've only ridden 2 wooden coasters in Europe, and they are not old enough. So it is not in the UK. It is not Grand National. It is a scenic railway, listed as scenic railway model, but Philip got it correct. It is Ruche Banon, but I will give someone credit for the park because there's technically 2 options. So if someone wants to get the point, identify the park. There's 2 of these, so I'll give a point for whoever gets the park as well. But Philip has the first point for Ruche Banon. It is not at Bakken, which means it's at Tivoli, which means that Nick from Beyond the Thrills gets the point. So Nick is on the board, and I will give Philip a 4th point, which leaves both you and Chris tied with 4 points overall as we head into the final round. So basically how this works, if if neither Chris nor Philip, if neither of you get this one right, Philip will win because he got the most recent point. And then obviously, Chris, if you get this one, then you will win. But everyone can keep playing, just as with all the other rounds. But that'll be basically decided. Yeah, you rode both of those, so there you go. Tivoli Gardens looks underrated. I don't know. I mean, it's funny. In the enthusiast community, I don't think it's talked about a lot, but in general, it's like a well-known like park outside of the U.S. I think it gets talked about quite a bit. So it's kind of interesting in that way. Because I hate I hate you for beating me in the fantasy league. Yeah, I'm trying. I can't even recall this season was a complete disaster. I mean, my team was actually so bad. It was so funny too because after the draft, it said I was predicted to win, but I knew that was a bad sign. So, actually, yeah, because in the money league I'm in, after the draft, it said I had the ESPN thing said I had the worst team in the league that I'm currently in the championship, and this team that I missed the playoffs on, I had the best team allegedly. So that's fantasy football. That's what it is. But I do have this coaster, the next one. So when you want to ask questions, you can guess away. It was that bad, 141 to 89. Dang, that might have been my worst. That probably was my worst loss on the season. That's pretty darn bad. That's actually insane. That is crazy. Charge on PC. Welcome to the stream. Hope you've been having a good holiday season. This coaster is steel, so we do have a steel coaster. It is a B&M coaster. So far we have a B&M coaster. It is not an SLC. But it is in the US. So far we have the manufacturer down, and it is a US B&M coaster. It does have a chain lift. And because B&M is a European manufacturer, it is. It is not Hulk, but it does have inversions. It is not a hyper coaster. It is in the Six Flags chain. It is a flying coaster. It does have a Batman layout. So, and it is an invert. So, actually, there's going to be a point for identifying the ride name and the park. You can attempt to do both in one, I guess, if you want. But we do have... Oh, wait, did I say flying coaster? This is a inverted coaster in the Six Flags chain. Batman is correct. So name the park now. But it is a Batman the Ride clone, which gives Chris a point. So if Philip does not get the park first, then Chris will win. It is not over Georgia, not Magic Mountain, not over Texas, not St. Louis, not Fiesta, Texas, not Magic Mountain, not over Georgia. Nobody's gotten it yet. It's still up in the air. It is not Great America. It is not St. Louis. It is... Charge on PC got it for me first. It is Great Adventure, which puts Charged on PC on the board. But because Chris was able to get the first part of that with a total of 5 points, our Guess the Coaster winner is going to be Chris from Airtime Thrills. Unfortunately, I do not have a crown on me to give you, so I am once again without a crown this time. But a flyer with a Batman layout would be awesome. That would be crazy. Yeah, it's gonna be interesting getting used to saying Chupacabra as the B&M invert at Fiesta, Texas, but I think the retheme is gonna be pretty cool. Or at least it definitely will spruce it up, and it's definitely a lot better than just Goliath, so I do like that. You want your crown. if for some reason we meet up, I will make sure to go to Burger King and get one prior, or something. But that'll have to happen at some point. I at this point owe you 2 crowns, unless the crown I gave you on via the Instagram story counts. Um, but yeah, that'll have to be the move. Um, you earned it though. Yeah, no. Chris should not have to get the crown on his own. That should be my responsibility. Absolutely. Charged on PC. Yeah, you've won some. I could also give there if I had to give a crown for everybody I beat. Oh boy, I'd have to make like some crazy list. But that would be really funny. Because I know Charged on PC, you've gotten a few wins uh, on previous streams, but that'll do it for Guess the Coaster. Yeah, a lot of I don't even like Burger King is the worst part of it. I guess I'd have to get the chicken tenders or something. Um, but that'll wrap it up for the Guess the Coaster segment, which will lead into our final 2 segments and before our final Q&A. This is really just going to be the countdowns I was discussing in terms of at the beginning of the stream. I'm going to do a short overview for the most anticipated 2024 coasters that opened. I'll just kind of get into it right here. I didn't do this ranking in the last stream or last year, so I'm just going to kind of go over these pretty quick. Just as far as coasters that open, these would be the ranking of the coasters of basically if I could teleport and ride them, this would be the order in which I would do it, or like the priority list or whatever. And obviously last year, especially in the US, but even in general, our coaster lineup for 2024 with all the delays and other things just wasn't that strong, but we still did have a lot of solid coasters, as you can see with Vinfald, which looks like a fun Eurofighter. Even if it's short, seems to pack a punch. Penguin Trek seems like a fun family launch coaster with some cool theming at the beginning. I would have been able to ride it if it wasn't down the entire time I was at SeaWorld Orlando, so this should have been the one coaster I actually rode amongst the list, but unfortunately it was down. Gold Rush at Drayton Manor is obviously a unique family coaster with different ride cycle settings, so different experience depending on when you ride, which is cool. Kind of an under discussed one, just because it's at a smaller, or not smaller, but less talked about park in the UK. Minecart Madness at Universal Studios Japan. Obviously, that's going to be a really well-themed coaster with an interesting gimmick. Bobcat at Great Escape looks like a lot of fun. The only Legacy Six Flags coaster opened this year. Avix at Parque del Cafe is an interesting looking Gerstlauer Infinity Invert. It has no inversions, only focuses on airtime and turns, so that's kind of interesting. But we have no POV of it, so couldn't rank it any higher. Same can be said with Jungle Rush, which just opened recently, which also kind of has a similar gimmick with Gold Rush in terms of different ride experiences depending on when you ride it. And then you can finish out the last few on that right side with Fire in the Hole at Silver Dollar City, which looks really fun. Iron Menace at Dorney Park. Heard it didn't live up to expectations, but still looks like a solid dive layout. Hala Madrid at Real Madrid World could be ranked higher if we actually had a POV of this ride, because it looks like a great GCI layout, but kind of put it a little lower because we didn't have that yet. And then the top 5 is pretty good. Fianna Force looks like a nice Vekoma suspended thrill coaster. Mahuka looks like a huge upgrade over their first hot racer and looks really well paced with some great airtime and inversions. Top Thrill 2, it was only open for 8 days, but looked like quite a rush. And then Hyperia at Thorpe Park, some incredible elements on it. That first drop in that Outer Banked Hill into the inversion looks insane. And so it looks like one of the best coasters in all of Europe. But then you have Voltron, which, I mean, just with the combination of theming and elements, looks like one of the best coasters not only in Europe, but perhaps the entire world. It just looks absolutely incredible. So that's like the list of the 2024 coasters, shorter overview. And then we'll move on to the 2025 coasters, which this will be the last countdown I do before our final Q&A. But just to kind of go through the comments, yeah, Mahuka looks really good. Thoroughly impressed with just how well it holds up its speed and everything. Penguin Trek, you were able to enjoy it. I'm happy to hear that. It looked like a fun ride. Like I said, it was just really tragic. It was down when I was there. Voltron at number 1. Yeah, it looks insane. I thought, like, I think Hyperia also looks incredible, but Voltron is just, I think, kind of a different beast. And everything. So as going into the 2025 coasters, I exclude clones or near clones of rides in terms of the list, just like because these are rides we've seen. So that's why I have this list here of these clones that you can see here. And then I'm also going to have I'm not going to go through all of these, but you can just see it. These are the 10 coasters that missed the cut for my most anticipated list. And the two I'll kind of highlight are Twin Mill Racers and Wrath of Rakshasa. The reasons they didn't make it, Twin Mill Racers, just as far as the Hyper GTX goes, I think its layout doesn't look as good as Lightning Run, but it's definitely a new, interesting take on the model with a launch and mostly being inversion based. And Wrath of Rakshasa, I'm just not as big of a fan of dive coasters, so that's why it misses out. But both of these are kind of like in the same almost cluster as like the first few coasters we'll talk about in terms of my hype for them, basically, in terms of coasters that missed the cut. But and Stardust Racers, it will be on here much higher on the list. So with that being said, we'll move on into the actual countdown, starting with Palindrome here at number 15. As far as this coaster goes, hopefully it is able to open next year, ideally, because it's been delayed several years at this point. But I think what this ride is going to do very well is it's got a great selection of elements and good variety of forces despite having such a short layout. I actually think that first drop's going to be insanely good, even though it's not beyond vertical. It twists pretty early into the drop, which I like drops that have that twist at a very high point. So I think that's going to make it pretty unique as far as Gerstlauer drops go. And I mean, you're going to have a really nice ZRG stall you go through twice. It's going to have an amazing location. The inline twist should be fun and feel different, both going forwards and backwards. The most interesting elements to me are just in terms of if they're going to be good or not, is the flipped wave turn. I think going into it the first time, it looks like it'll have some nice airtime. Going backwards, it probably won't be so much. And then the hop stall is just kind of a weird element. We'll see how that actually feels. Palindrome on the list for the 9th year in a row. That's the truth. But overall, looks like a really fun ride. And I think despite it being pretty short compared to, like I said, like Wrath of Rakshasa that didn't make the list, I think the quality of elements is what's going to elevate the ride overall. Next, we're going to go with Wiener Looping at Wiener Prater. This is the Mach Big Dipper. Another short but eventful ride with some great looking airtime, especially that first drop. It's going to be 92 degrees. That looks like it'll be really strong. But it also will have some excellent hang time on the finish loop that you can see here. I mean, that's probably going to be an elite hang time moment. And it just has some solid collection of inversions overall. And it does have this twisted hill that I've heard is similar to the one on Lost Gravity. That's very good. That like gives borderline ejector. So another very short ride, but seems to pack in a lot into its layout. So that is why it makes it here at number 14. At number 13, we have Helios at Fantasiana. This one's kind of a more difficult one just because we do have animated POVs that people have created of what they believe the layout will look like. And I think we generally have a pretty good idea, but the park hasn't like officially released one, I believe. Despite the Striker coaster, this is going to be a very short coaster. It is going to have a lift hill. but it does look like it's going to have some nice theming. I mean, it's going to have a corkscrew that goes through a building, kind of like Coaster, so that looks awesome. And the inversions do look very whippy on this with the corkscrews. And it does appear that it will have some off-axis airtime moments that I'm really curious to see how it's going to ride in terms of how strong those moments are going to be. Because for me personally, I love off-axis airtime. So hopefully those will be able to deliver. But this is a little bit more mysterious just in terms of the entirety of the layout. But it should still be a very good coaster and a worthy replacement for Wild Train on a lot of levels. So that's Helios. Number 12, we have Transformers at 7 Yanbu, which is in the Riyadh area in Saudi Arabia. I also added other locations because there's actually 3 Axis coasters being built, but with one of them being a lift hill version that's 856 feet long, and then there's another that's going to be a triple launch that assumedly is going to be a swing launch, but we don't have any visuals on the layout for those ones. But this is the one that we've seen the construction progress of and seen the layout of. So it's going to go through its layout twice. Only 780 feet long, but just double that basically. And it'll have 2 very interesting inversions. I mean, despite being a short ride, the sensations you're going to get on this is going to be completely unique from any other coaster out there. So I think that's kind of what carries it, despite its short ride duration. It's also kind of a hard ride to rank because maybe those elements are going to be so wild and unique. And the near misses too, that's a good point. We'll definitely add to it. That it could elevate the ride a lot despite not being very long. But it definitely does look extremely interesting. The trains looked really cool just from the pictures and videos I saw too. And then the near misses and theming of the ride looks solid. So we'll see. This is another one that kind of with Palindrome. I don't know if we see this open next year, but at least it's been mostly built, so that's potentially a good sign. But this is dependent on a park opening as well. So we'll see in terms of if this one opens. Next, we have Rapterra at King's Dominion. This is, of course, the launched B&M Wing Coaster. I think in terms of a layout, I think Thunderbird does look better, personally, between the two. But I mean, this ride's still going to be very good. The launch is going to be a lot of fun as it is on Thunderbird. The selection of inversions is interesting. There's a dive loop along with a corkscrew and heartline roll. Just interesting, and I would have thought maybe they would have had more. Especially that first element is just kind of a large overbank, so we'll kind of see how that rides. But I think the corkscrew and heartline roll are going to be really nice inversions. There's some airtime moments it appears to be mixed in as well. There's this twisted hill that looks similar to the one on Thunderbird that's thrown in, and if you're on the right side, that's going to be pretty good. And the theming on the launch looks cool. I think my biggest gripe with this coaster, though, is the fact that there's not a near miss with any of the inversions. I think if you're doing a wing coaster, it's almost a crime not to have a near miss with any of the inversions. Like, I feel like that's half of the point of having it in that seating setup. So that is kind of unfortunate to see that there's not going to be a near miss there. But otherwise, it looks like a really fun coaster. Looks like a worthwhile and worthy volcano replacement, and should have pretty solid capacity, hopefully. So looks like it'll be a very nice addition for King's Dominion. That honestly needs more high quality coasters to fill out their depth, I would say, just looking at the lineup in general, though I have not been to the park yet. And just going through comments, the restraints do crush you. I actually didn't have that much of an issue with it on Thunderbird. For some reason, the only ride I've taken serious issue with the vest restraints is Valraven. But I've heard some complaint about Thunderbird, it being a problem on there. But I personally haven't had that issue, so we'll see how they are on Rapterra. Next is Spitfire at Six Flags Qiddiya, another very unique coaster that's kind of weird to rank. This is an Intamin LSM launch coaster with a swing launch, top speed of about 79 miles per hour. It appears that it will feature an airtime hill in the swing launch section, which, from the reviews I've heard of Pantheon and Tutatis, that's going to be insane because it's going to be even faster. So that should be absolutely incredible in the swing launch section. And then, I mean, this is going to have the world's tallest inversion with that inverted top hat. The hang time will probably be pretty insane because you're probably going to crest over that pretty slowly, which is going to be incredible. And it's going to have a really nice sense of speed. It's a very unique coaster overall, but I think it's definitely gonna deliver, even though it'll definitely be overshadowed by definitely Falcon's Flight and potentially some of the other coasters coming to the park. Yeah, it's crazy to see the progress that Six Flags Kitty has made over the last several years. That, yeah, it's still hard to believe sometimes that it is indeed real, but it very much is. Next, we are going to move on to Circuit Breaker at Kodoland. I think the selection of inversions on this actually honestly look better than the selection on Siren's Curse, because Siren's Curse only has like 2 corkscrews, and this coaster will have some really nice looking ones, including the barrel roll, down drop, Immelman, and corkscrew. I also believe the rollover camelback, one of the portions, is considered an inversion, so that should be pretty nice. So I think the inversions are going to be very good on this. Also, it's a tilt coaster, so I mean, its main gimmick, the drop, is going to be pretty nice. And it's a straight drop, which is good for sure, or should be good. There's a few nice looking airtime moments, and this ride will also have onboard audio and lighting, so that's pretty cool. I will say that if you're looking for a more airtime focused ride, Siren's Curse, which is going to be next, it's definitely going to provide more of that. But I think the inversions will be better on this one, so yeah, I would. The first half looks great. I would agree in terms of, I think the first half looks really strong, and the second half kind of dies a little bit, but I still think overall it's going to be a really nice coaster. I mean, that Immelman looks like it'll have some really nice hang time, especially, so it should be pretty good overall. And that'll take us to Siren's Curse at Cedar Point. So kind of talking about it, this is going to be weirdly really focused on airtime. I think they mentioned like 13 moments or something pretty crazy. The drop is going to be interesting just because it curves so quickly out of getting out of it, but from like a tilt. So I don't know if you're going to get much of a drop feeling on that, honestly. But it'll definitely make it unique compared to the other tilt coasters. So there is that. The 2 corkscrews this ride has do look very whippy though. So I will say that. So even though it doesn't have that many inversions, it looks like the 2 it will have will be very good. And some of these elements, I mean, you have that big weird camelback that goes into a dive. You have this you have this weird triple down into the tunnel. That looks like it might be crazy depending on how it rides. And then there's another rollover element that also looks pretty wacky. So it has kind of a weird layout, but it looks like it could be a very good one. Airtime with a vest restraint, I don't know. We'll see. I think hopefully it'll be all right. I've never experienced the I think the Vekoma vest restraint that's going to be on these. So I have not had that experience yet, but yeah, it looks, and once again, it'll also have onboard audio and lighting. So I think this will be a really nice coaster for Cedar Point. I do wish this had been able to get worked out with the government for Mexico, or not Mexico City, but the specific district that Six Flags Mexico is in, because I think they definitely could have used this coaster more than like a Cedar Point, and honestly, I think a lot of other parks in the chain could have. But you know, one way or another, this will still be a great addition for Cedar Point, for sure, and honestly, probably a top half coaster for them. So definitely looks like a really fun ride. Next, we'll move on to Colossus at Six Flags Qiddiya. This is an interesting looking GCI. It's almost 3,000 feet long. Kind of modest stats just in general. It's a little under 100 feet tall in height. It does feature a nearly straight first drop, which is interesting. I noticed this layout is not as twisty in general as some of the other GCIs, and there's a lot of like straight to nearly straight airtime hills, which there are some GCIs that are doing more of that, but in general, it's not as common. It seems to be just the way the animations I've seen, the layout appears, less pops on the transitions, so it's going to be a little bit different as far as the GCIs go. Potentially worse, but we'll see. It will also feature the Infinity Flyer trains. So, and I know when those were announced, like the idea was that they can allow for stronger airtime. But I also know that people have complained about the trains on Zambezi Zinger. So hopefully they can get the comfortability of those worked out. So I hope that is able to work. As far as comments go, keep forgetting about Siren's Curse, not over the moon about her or Flash. Flash, I'll admit, I'm a little, I think it definitely has been clouded out. I think Siren's Curse, even despite the circumstances, I'm very intrigued to check out. But I can kind of understand that. RMC vests really kill the ride. They definitely aren't the most comfortable, but in terms of the ride experience, I don't think, for me personally, it doesn't take away that much. Yeah, I haven't done the Infinity Flyer train, so I can't say that. And I have no idea if the SLC vest restraints are like the same as Siren's Curse, so I would not know. I have not done those yet. But hopefully the Infinity Flyer trains will not be a problem, as this looks like a pretty solid wooden coaster overall. Next, we'll move on to Yoi at Wallaby Holland. Honestly, one of the weirder coasters on... I mean, I've said some of these coasters are hard to rank, but this is kind of one of the weirdest ones, because individually on their own, honestly, I don't think either of these coasters make the top 10, or if they do, barely, or one of them, I guess. But as an overall package and having that dueling element, and just because they're two different coasters, they make it a lot higher. The blue side is going to be a family side, has no inversion, and is pretty much focused on airtime and turns. The drop in first few airtime hills in the beginning actually look potentially strong. But I mean, that's based on unofficial animation I've seen. I'm like, oh, okay, that actually looks pretty good, but we'll see how it actually runs. And then the green side is a throwing side that has 6 inversions, which some intriguing elements. There's the barrel roll drop on an RMC Raptor. We haven't seen that, so that's going to be interesting. It does, the first still looked pretty good. I think the high five on that side is going to be better because it's going to have the directional change, like more of that snap to it. And then there's a 0G stall that looks kind of nice, and there's a twisted hill that looks like it could be solid depending on how it's paced. I think in general, though, the inversions don't look the best, especially for having 6 of them. And like, I mean, there's like a cutback and some corkscrews that I think are just kind of okay on some of the RMC Raptors. So I think they individually as rides lack dynamism, and I think it's cool. Like I get, like, as far as the rides go, it totally makes sense in terms of having a family side and a thrilling side. And I think at the end of the day, if that was that was the goal, and that was certainly accomplished. But just as like a coaster enthusiast that's looking forward to these rides, I think the fact that one of them has only inversions, or has 6 inversions, and the other has no inversions definitely hurts the two. But I mean, it's still a very unique ride overall, so we will see. Let's see, you don't mind okay, that's from earlier. Let's see, if you think of it, Yoi is basically Twisted Colossus. Well, but Twisted Colossus has like a much better layout, and also Twisted Colossus, you experience both sides, where on Yoi you won't be able to. That would have been kind of sick if they did make it a Mobius loop, but that's not what's going to be happening. But that's, I guess, our most similar comparison we could think of. But we're going to move on to our number 5, and this may be the least likely coaster to open next year of the bunch, which is saying something. But I did put it on here because there has been land clearing for this new area going to Dream Island in Russia, which this is where this Intamin vertical launch coaster is going. It does not have a name. But I decided to include it on here just in case it did open, just because there has been construction progress, at least on the ground. So yeah, the Intamin vertical launch coaster at Dream Island is going to come in at number 5. It is almost 3,500 feet long, so it's going to be a pretty darn long launch coaster. It's going to have a really nice mix of airtime moments and inversions. The pacing, just based on the Intamin animation, looks really good. So there you have that to look forward to. I think what the highlight elements are going to be, though, the vertical launch should be pretty fun, but that beyond vertical drop, especially if it's not trimmed or trimmed too badly, is going to be insane with all the momentum you have. So that's going to be a highlight element. There's this dive loop that the way it's profiled, you will get airtime going over the top. So that's going to be a great element. Think kind of like the Armsy Raptor Raven dives. Probably not as strong though, but you get the idea. There's also going to be a vertical loop that's probably going to be pretty strong in both the positives and give some okay hang time. And then there's some airtime moments like this wave turn and an off-axis hill and a twisted hill, both of those being toward the end of the ride that look really strong as well. So this ride, I think overall is, in this model, I hope to see at other parks around the world. And I hope this first one is able to deliver a great ride experience so we can get more around the world. And it just looks like a really neat layout. So that is why it comes in at number 5. Number 4 is going to be Iron Rattler at Six Flags Qiddiya. Now, you might be wondering why this was way above the other tilt coasters, and that's just because this layout looks absolutely insane. I mean, just even disregarding the cool tilt gimmick, this is an over 4,000 foot long coaster with an incredible selection of inversions, and has some pretty nice looking airtime moments as well. But it's gonna have a straight drop, so that's good. It's gonna have this stall loop coming out of the first drop that looks absolutely insane in terms of the hang time it's gonna deliver. There's this double up as well that looks like it could be pretty good. It's gonna have the world's first double 0G roll, which, I mean, that could be absolutely insane. Because, I mean, I loved 0G rolls in general, so having them back to back, that could be awesome. There's a barrel roll down drop that's probably also going to be really good. Generally, those have been pretty good on rides that they've been put on more recently. Mostly you can think of RMCs in terms of being in the middle of the layout. The theming, yep, it's going to have train lighting, and the ride theming is going to be probably quite good. But to get back to the elements, there's also some twisted hills and an off-axis hill that looks really good as well. And then there's a final corkscrew that could be very whippy as well. It just overall looks like an incredible layout. Falcon's Flight is listed as 2025, as Six Flags Qiddiya is, I think, slated right now for a summer 2025 opening. So they will all be on here, even though I have questions if they're actually going to open next year. But they're supposed to open next year, so they will be on here. Yeah, that's going to be Iron Rattler at Six Flags Qiddiya. Next, we're going to move on to number 3, which is going to be Alpen Fury at Canada's Wonderland. I've seen some arguments between this and the next coaster on here in terms of what people are more excited for, or which ones they're going to think is going to be better. And I can see it. It is a bit difficult, but I did put Alpen Fury at 3. This looks like a great, probably the greatest premier launch coaster layout ever. Certainly, and probably their best coaster yet, although I do really like the Mr. Freeze clones. But this is going to be another 3,000 plus foot long launch coaster with 9 inversions, which is insane. It is mostly inversion focused, but there are some airtime pops added in, and they look to have add in a little bit of variety there, which is good. And sense of speed should be pretty nice at points. But I mean, before we even go into the elements, the usage of the mountain, at least at the very beginning, looks insane. Uh, Jumping out of the mountain along with the fire effect is going to be crazy. I hope that fire effect's reliable. Because I mean that just looks absolutely incredible. Makes up for, I guess, the loss of volcano despite going to a different park. I mean this just that looks insane. No comfort colors either, so yay, that definitely helps. And I did see the trains in person. They did look slightly roomier than usual, but I don't know how much it'll help. But when I was at IAPA, so hopefully it's at least able to help out a little bit. Um, but as far as the elements go, I mean, the launch into that inside top hat out of the mountain is going to be insane. I think, I mean, the hang time, especially on that inverted top hat, is going to be probably wild. There's a 0G stall that also looks like it's going to have some pretty nice hang time. There's this really weird, what they're RCB calls a banana roll element, but it's like sideways, where it's like these two rolls that look pretty whippy, so that's good. And then this ride has multiple barrel rolls. It also has a barrel roll down drop and a 0G roll that, I mean, these inversions, it's an inversion focused on ride, but I mean, the inversions look really good, which is what you want to see. So, this ride, honestly, if it delivers, I think it's gonna, people are gonna be talking about Premiere a little differently, I think, because I mean, this ride layout looks incredible. Alpine Fury would have been a sick volcano replacement. Yeah, it definitely would have been. The biggest concern though, if this ride is the capacity, is probably going to be brutal. And I mean, there's a reason I have it on that bingo card as getting a 4-hour wait at some point next year. So the capacity, that's going to probably be the ride's biggest downfall, but it looks incredible otherwise. You're visiting Magic Mountain in summer of 2025. Which should you ride first? So, I mean, if you're like one of the first few people in the park, although Chris is probably better at this, because a lot of the times I've gone to Magic Mountain, I don't go usually in peak times. But I think one of the better ones to do, I mean, if you're in there like one of the first few people, I do full throttle. Just because but like literally if you're one of the first few people in there, that's probably what I'd do. West Coast Racers, actually, yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, West Coast Racers can get pretty bad. That also would be that would be a good first one. Probably either of those two would be good choices. And then if you're like, I mean, personally, but like I said, usually I don't go when it's super busy. Wonder Woman, we did do that first when me and Jace went, so that's another good shout out. Although we didn't go early in the day, we went in the middle of the day and still did it first, but it wasn't that bad. X2, the only thing is I think X2 might be the one to hit right now, just because it's been having some reliability issues. We know it's the purges going on, so oh, you are getting Flash Pass. I'm not sure what rides are included because I've never gotten it at Magic Mountain, but it should say on the site. So I would probably refer to that, but I hope you have a good time at Magic Mountain when you're able to go and most stuff is open. So I mean, I would tell you probably don't expect Superman to be open, but you probably already know that. So that'd be the one thing, but hopefully most of the other stuff's open. But there you go. I'll move on to our next coaster in the countdown, which is going to be Stardust Racers at Universal's Epic Universe. I think the hype for this coaster kind of died a little bit once Alpine Fury was announced, because it just kind of came out of nowhere about how incredible it was. And this coaster was announced and has been known about for so long. And even a lot of the construction progress was like done a while ago, so it's that probably has not helped its case in terms of keeping up with the hype. But this coaster looks incredible. I mean, this is a dueling mock launch coaster with each track being around 5,000 feet long. That both tracks are longer than Velocicoaster. I mean, that's just insane. The layouts are mostly similar, but they do have their biggest difference being with those signature inversions. The left side has a barrel roll down drop, while the right side has a 0G roll. So that'll definitely feel different. Um, both sides seem to be very loaded with airtime, and they're gonna have really nice dueling interactions with the other trains, and it's gonna be an incredibly long ride. So that definitely is gonna work in its favor. Um, we'll see how good the launches themselves are, and there is a chance that uh, I don't see this ride as probably being super intense. So if you're looking for that, I kind of doubt that's what we're getting with this one. And that also makes me curious of how the pacing's gonna be, but should still be excellent overall. It's also gonna have onboard audio and train lighting. Like night rides are gonna be absolutely elite. So this looks like an absolutely world-class coaster. I will definitely, if I'm able to visit Epic Universe when it's dark, I will definitely try to get night rides on this because I mean that's gonna be another worldly experience. Because the track's not going to be lit up, but the trains are. So that's also going to be kind of interesting in terms of that aspect. But it looks absolutely incredible. That being said, the number one does have to go to Falcon's Flight at Six Flags Qiddiya. I've talked about this coaster several times on this channel before, and I think I will admit that earlier on I was a little more pessimistic about it just because I mean, I questioned if it was going to even happen once it got revealed. It's like, okay, I was like, I criticized the layout, but upon watching it like again and again and looking at the video, or the unofficial animations, I suppose, but even like the official Intamin animation, I've definitely grown more fond of the layout and just overall concept of this coaster more and more. And I think this layout is absolutely insane. I mean, we're talking about the world's tallest, longest, and fastest coaster. It's going to be over 600 feet tall, 155 miles per hour, 13,943 feet long. Like, that's insane. And it's really like a few different coasters, like, combined into one. Because the first part is, like, kind of this, like, hyper section, kind of shortened hyper coaster section with, like, this really nice-looking twisted first drop, some nice looking airtime hills, some good sense of speed, and then that's like one ride almost. And then you have like the launch section where you go up into the in on top of the cliff where you're gonna get those amazing views. Which I mean those views are gonna be insane. And then you have that massive drop. Which I know it does level out at a point, but until it levels out, it's still going to be insane, and the buildup of speed is going to be ridiculous, regardless. And then that massive airtime hill. I'm curious how strong the airtime is going to be, but, I mean, regardless, even if it's weak floater, just being up that high is going to be ridiculous. So that's going to be a highlight element. And then the rest of the ride mostly is like a show, just basically speed demon sort of deal, just a pure showcase of speed, which I think is still going to be really fun, even if it's not like the most dynamic experience. So, I mean, this ride just, like I said, looks absolutely ridiculous. And I think the variety in the layout, just because of the different experiences at points you're going to get, is definitely going to add to the overall experience. And this is going to be a one-of-a-kind coaster layout that I think in general it will provide a world-class experience. Will it be the world's best coaster? For me personally, I still would be doubtful of that because I just have a hard time seeing anything for me personally beating Voyage. But I could definitely see it for a lot of people being the best coaster on the planet. And I think there will be at least some people for sure who have it, if not many people. Although, well, that would require many people to go out and ride it, which, as far as enthusiasts go, I don't know if that's going to happen, but amongst the people who ride it, I could definitely see some people having it as their number one overall coaster. So that's going to do it for our countdown. I will get into our final Q&A and then also answer or look through the chat and see what I missed. But yeah, so final Q&A. Any last questions you have, any last buy or sells, now would be the time to get those out. And let me look through the chat real quick. Yeah, it's so funny that Spitfire, it's like basically 200 feet tall, and it's only it's like, yeah, not even half the size of that hill. It's just ridiculous. Yeah, I'm hoping to go to Epic Universe next year. If I go to IAPA, I will definitely lump in Epic Universe as part of it. So I'm hoping to go next year. Ideally, let's see. The incline launch up the lift seems like a breakdown. Yeah, that'll be interesting. The reliability of this ride also is going to be something to monitor. Rip Ride Rocket, you'll ride it before it bites the dust. That's good. Definitely, I know it's super high in your overall rankings. It's not quite as high for me, but it's my favorite ride at Studios Florida. And I mean, I treated my 2023 rides as my final rides, so I am at peace. I don't need to get final rides on it. If I wanted to, I could have gotten them earlier this year, and I decided against it. So, I mean, my final night rides were incredible. So, I am at peace with its closure. And then, yeah, it's weird that it's going to have this massive incline launch, too. Because, yeah, Maverick has, like, a really tiny one compared to this. After that incline launch, you will get ejector airtime afterwards. We'll see. That would be ideal if you could. If you do. So, there you go. Also, see you, the lightning went out. I thank you for checking out the stream. And I hope you have a good night and a good rest of your holiday season. Let's see. What do I think the golden ticket for best new coaster will go to? I think it's going to be Stardust Racers. I had it as part of that bingo prediction, but it's really hard for international coasters, even like stuff in Canada, because like the year Leviathan opened, and Skyrush as well, but to be fair, that was a more polarizing ride. Wild Eagle won best new coaster. Now it did happen this year where Voltron won it, but like I think that was a very unique circumstance where it was a coaster at Europa Park amidst the competition between like Fire in the Hole and Iron Menace. So I think Stardust Racers is going to win the Golden Ticket Award for Best New Coaster next year. Or at least Best New Attraction, because they do split it up. I could see Alpine Fury taking whichever one Stardust Racers doesn't, but I think Stardust Racers is gonna get the golden ticket. I'd be pretty surprised if it didn't. Let's see. I mean, honestly, I'm gonna be honest. I think Siren's Curse has a better chance of like especially like Falcon's Flight. If you're like throwing that in there, if it opens, it's not gonna win it. I mean, Siren's Curse has a better chance of getting the straggling award that's left over than that. So I will definitely mention that. Let's see. Never been to Great Adventure, so I can't give any hints there, or in terms of, or tips in terms of what to do. Yeah, I think I'm gonna buy that over Texas's new record-breaking dive will be a Giga dive. I actually do believe it in this case, so I will buy it. It could be just a different weird obscure record, but I think they will actually be getting a Giga dive. So I think that's what's mostly speculated at this point, and I'm inclined to believe it. Yeah, the Golden Ticket voters love Europa. It's the only international park that they are aware exists. That and some UK parks, because what's the name of the Blackpool Pleasure Beach boat? Oh, Valhalla's like always wins the usually wins an award as well. So so yeah, that definitely is Um, True. Still though. As I mentioned, any final questions or buy or sells? Actually, I didn't put this in here because I didn't have time to. But also, um, probably I can just mention now that I mentioned earlier in the stream I'm gonna be going overseas pretty soon. I'm actually going to Italy. No coasters or theme parks involved there. Just travel for just to be able to check out the sites and everything. But because of that and some other things I want to get handled in the new year, it may be a little bit before I have my next stream. So I will mention that. I actually do want to I did want to upload my top 200 coasters countdown since I reached 200 this year on my secondary channel. Just like the same video countdown style that I've done with the previous years. I was wanting to release it before the end of this year, but this trip actually materialized pretty quickly, so that is mostly done, but I still want to evaluate a few things, and so that'll probably come out next year, or early next year, so I will mention that. So as far as content goes here on YouTube, it's probably going to be pretty slow to start out in January, but hopefully after that, I should be able to get it rolling. My school schedule is a little nicer in terms of that because I have a few online classes this semester, so that should help. But I wanted to also ask, as far as the streams go, I'm hoping ideally that I could do some more guest streams next year. If there's anyone that you would like to see come on as a guest, just like suggestions of content creators you would like to see either repeat or new ones. Probably more so new ones because I think I've generally know like who's interested in coming back, or I've been told by those who would be interested in coming back, who would want to come on. But I just also want to throw that out there as we wrap up this stream and wrap up the last piece of YouTube content for this year. So, yeah. Let's see. As far as questions go, Over Texas was packed today. Yeah, I saw it, like JB Thrills. I saw on his stories like some of the wait times. I'm like, wow, it is crazy busy. Judge Roy Scream's wait was out of the entrance of the ride. That's insane. Buy or sell, Hershey Park becomes the best park in the U.S. Like as a consensus, I'm gonna sell that because they have a pretty loaded lineup as is. But I think the other coaster focused parks like Cedar Point are going to continue to have like a better consensus lineup. And I did like the atmosphere of Hershey Park and thought it excelled in a lot of ways, but I know they've had some operational struggles specifically that a lot of people have cited as hindering their experience. So I don't think it will become like a consensus best park, but I certainly still think it's one of the best that I've done in the U.S. So it's still very good. So no slight to Hershey Park at all. Yeah, New Texas China was 2 hours. Yikes. That's not fun. Let's see. Oh, Christian's here in the chat. Hello. Nice to see you. Nice to see you here. We're pretty much doing final Q&A and wrapping things up. We've had a lot of former guests here between Chris, JB Thrills, Jace from 808 Coaster Life, Christian from Theme Park Horizons. We had Nick from Beyond the Thrills in here earlier. So yeah, I had a lot of people, which is cool. Everyday Coasters on the stream. Okay. I don't think I'm familiar with that channel yet, but I will look into that. Oh yeah, I'm gonna buy this. The buy or sell. I will come to Disney World again in 2025. I mean, assuming I go to IAPA next year, Disney World will 100% be a part of it. So, and I am planning to come back to IAPA next year, so I will buy that. Plans could change, but I expect that will happen. So, um, coasters every day. Okay, I'll look into that. Um, it takes 2 hours to get around New Texas Giants last lap. Yeah, I am also. I mean, anyone who watched the coaster draft from earlier this year will know that none of us on there were that big of a fan of New Texas Giant, and that definitely applies with me. Um, that I was. I mean, it's outside of my top 60, so of 201 coasters I've ridden. So that's I think it's still a fun ride. I'm happy it exists because we wouldn't get RMC's other creations without it. But as just as a ride experience, I definitely think it's the weakest RMC I've done. Tatsu was listed as a 3.5 hour wait on Magic Mountain's app. That's bad. I hope that was inaccurate. Mr. Free said 150-minute wait. I mean, I'm not surprised because shuttle coaster. So there you go. Wait, JB, you didn't know I was not a New Texas Giant fan? Yeah, I've gone. I think I've gone on a few tangents on it before, but probably pretty spread out to be fair. So um, yeah, I'm not the biggest New Texas Giant fan. That is for sure. I went over Texas last minute. Well, you know that I went there last minute at the end of last year. It was at the end of the Hollywood Nights trip, and I rode a lot of great coasters, and that one just didn't quite stack up. Yeah, the propaganda machine owned that draft. By the way, I think people would still be interested in the propaganda machine by the numbers. I can't believe that, like, I don't remember what the video was, but the one guy who actually mentioned that, I'm like, people actually still remember this. That was funny, but I will still vouch for propaganda machine by the numbers if it's a possibility. Yeah, that's the problem. Is like no, it probably wouldn't. It would not do very well with views, and those take a lot of work. So but it would be funny. But I do get it. It would probably hinder the bingo from happening. That I had. What do I think of Wildcat's Revenge? I have not written it, so I can't say. I was not a fan of Wildcat in its original form, though. Last time I went to Hershey Park was 2017, so I am missing Candemonium and Wildcat's Revenge. Let's see. Buy or sell. SeaWorld closes Kraken for a modern Vekoma or intimate multi-launch coaster like Abyssus or Pantheon. Kraken isn't that old, is it? It's like 1999 or 2000, right? Yeah, 2000. I think it's around for a while, but I mean, it is SeaWorld's oldest coaster, so when inevitably they have to remove something, it will be the one that gets removed. And so when it does get removed, are we saying these could be the options? SeaWorld Orlando is kind of into their weird gimmicky rides that they can like say has like this something. The first this or this, like, because what, Icebreaker, it had that like steepest spike in Florida or something. And then Pipeline, they advertised that as being, I mean, that was, to be fair, a very unique ride. I forget what Penguin Trek they did for that one. They like having some sort of gimmick they can advertise. I don't know what that would look like for a modern Vekoma or a intimate multi-launch, but if they could have some weird element on it, I think they could probably do it. And it would make sense as a Kraken replacement, so I'll buy it. I'm talking in circles, but yes. I will buy it because I think it'd be a good idea. Let's see. To be fair, you get it though because riding other RMCs, New Texas Giant tends to go lower. Yeah, that's fair. I think the problem was it was what was it? Was it my 10th RMC I'd ridden? So I mean, I think it just was in a bad spot in terms of uh, being not one of the being pretty far down the list of ones I had written in terms of the order I did. Um, let's see. Yeah, Twisted Colossus, I still think that's one of the best RMCs I've done. Even if it doesn't do a whole lot, I still think the layout's really good. And it's very unique. So I think that gives it an edge over a lot of others. I did talk about the Hollywood Rip Ride rocket closure a little bit earlier in the stream. I know that there's been rumblings of like a Ghostbusters replacement. I'm not entirely caught up in terms of that's like looking like a coaster or a dark ride. I assumed I would need to look into that aspect of it, um, of the conversation. But I did mention in terms of Rip Ride Rocket. I mean, you know, it's my favorite coaster and ride at the Universal Studios Florida Park. And I'm at peace with its closure. I mean, when we wrote it back in uh, what was it, 23? I kind of went in with the mindset that that was going to be my last ride. So the fact that I'm not going to be able to ride it again is not really a problem for me. Like I said, I'm at peace with it, just because I had already basically prepared as if it was the end. Um, and I have faith that Universal will be able to replace Rip Ride Rocket well. So I'm not too sad about it. But I mean, I am hoping they do deliver a nice replacement. But I have no reason to believe they wouldn't. So, or whether the replacement is on the specific plot of land or elsewhere. So, they did repaint it a few years ago. Well, you see, they repainted Scorpion not that long ago, but look what happened. That means nothing. So yeah, I wouldn't take that with much, but I mean, Kraken, I think it's fine for a while. I mean, it's not that old, so just whenever it closes, basically. Um, your two bucket list coasters at the moment are X2 and Iron Gauzy. Third would probably be Steel Vengeance. That's a good bucket list. X2 and Steel Vengeance are in my top 4 overall, so certainly good picks. I've not done Iron Gauzy. Hope you have a good Hershey Park first visit. X2 is legendary, but it was but your last visit it was down both days. Dang, that's tough. Yeah, I've heard a lot of people have had issues writing it, which is really unfortunate. Um, let's see. I think I'll get through. Let's see, what time is it? I'll answer any questions that come in the next 2 minutes, and then I'll probably wrap it up once I've answered all of them. So, yeah. They advertised Penguin Trek as the park's first family coaster, even though Icebreaker was heavily marketed. Yeah, as the park's first family coaster. I guess that was just with the whole blunder of the height restriction change, but then they got it changed back, but it was pretty late, so that was kind of interesting how they went about doing that. That's probably why I forgot, because it was confusing, which is not what you want. Let's see. Yeah, X2, you got that flex that it's not the best 4D coaster you've been on. But speaking of bucket list coasters, that other one that you're referring to is definitely in my top 3. La Vibora was the roughest coaster at Over Texas. I mean, of the ones I rode, I guess 10. Actually, no. I think La Vibora, it's like it had rough transitions and had like kind of bad moments, but I honestly thought Judge Roy's Scream was worse, so I would say Judge Roy's Scream wins. Because it was not great towards the front, and can imagine it could only get worse towards the back. So yeah, Judge Roy's Scream is rougher. I agree. So I am probably not gonna come back to Texas in 2025 and hit up over Texas. I will sell that. I think it's pretty unlikely. Um, but we will never say it's impossible. Dallas is a common flight connection from Fresno to most places I've flown to. So if the opportunity presents itself, especially because all the season passed, you never know. But probably not going to happen. Um, over Texas needs help. That's fair, and I fear it might get a lot worse before it gets better. I'm gonna be honest. I mean, obviously you have La Vibora that has permanently closed, but I am very concerned for the futures of Shockwave and Mr. Freeze long term. I really am. And honestly, even Shockwave, I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if that's a relatively quick, um, relatively quick closure. I really would not be surprised. Not based on any information or anything, just pure speculation. But oh boy, yeah, I would have some concern, and those are my top two coasters at the park too. So, um, that being said, in the case of Shockwave, I'd actually rather they rip it out rather than give it the Riddler Mindbender treatment, because at that point, I mean, you're just neutering the ride so much. Um, I think that would just be a poor decision, and I don't think they do it because the problem of it is location. So we'll see. Um, let's see. I'm not sure what my most ridden coaster is because I don't keep track of the number of rides I get on get on coasters. That being said, it's probably between X2 and Twisted Colossus because those are the two coasters I ride the most at Magic Mountain. So be between those two. I think it's probably Twisted Colossus because I think I've had more visits where I've ridden Twisted Colossus a bunch of times and only like X2 once or twice given the circumstances. Um, so it probably is that, but I don't even keep track in terms of how many times I've ridden a coaster like in its entirety. Um, I keep track for my like logs when I go to different places, but not like overall, which maybe I should, but it's probably too late to get started now. So um, let's see. Let's see. Okay, I'm trying to catch up in terms of stuff I need to get to because I said till 40 in terms of stuff I'd respond to. Um, Scorpion is still SBNO. Do I think it has a chance of being relocated to a small park, or is it doomed to the scrapper? I mean, I guess it's a good sign it's still SBNO, but it's a very old coaster. I think realistically, unless SeaWorld was interested in selling it in one of those small like European parks that seem to like to get Schwarzkopf loopers, wants to deal with it because there's some of those that have just gone around like crazy. Um, I would expect that it probably is demolished. I don't really see too many parks being interested in a ride that old. Um, and also, I think there is something to be said about there's probably concerns with some of the Schwarzkopfs with those older style trains, just considering some of the um, issues we've seen with those. So I think that one is probably cooked. Um, let's see. Um, I I hardly ever watched Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends. I watched a smidge when I was younger, but no, I would sell. I don't think it's goated. It was not one of my favorites, but for the people that it was, happy that it was one of your favorites. But um, that was in terms of airing. They would show like they would re-air some episodes, but It wasn't really being produced much, I think, by the time I was like watching Cartoon Network, so uh, not one of my favorites. Yep, JB Thrills agrees in terms of Judge Roy Scream. And I think, uh, yeah, Fiesta Texas and Over Texas being next to each other is like that meme of Coffee and Baby versus Hydrogen Bomb. That's fair. I haven't been to Fiesta Texas, but that park looks incredible. So, uh, that would be a park I would love to get to at some point in the near future. And I hope that Over Texas does have a nice future ahead of it. I just, like I said, I'm concerned because for me personally, I think two of my favorite rides at the park are not long for this world, but um, but I would uh, but I mean, sometimes you have to rip the Band-Aid off before you can get better. So, or you have to get worse before you can get better. So, um, I just hope timing wise it works out okay. In terms of when those decisions are made. Your prediction is Iron Dragon doesn't make it to the end of 2025. I don't think so, but who knows? Because um, they had to do some work around it for Top Thrill too. But the corporate may not care about that. So who knows? Because I mean, at the end of the day, they're the ones making the decisions mostly. So, but I actually don't believe in Iron Dragon's demise. But who knows? It could happen. I think that's pretty much gonna wrap it up as far as what I mentioned. So I think before I head out. First of all, of course, thanks to all of you who've been watching up to this point, whether live or afterwards. But I mentioned as far as YouTube stuff goes, it's probably going to be a little slow out the gate starting next year because I'm actually leaving to go to Italy pretty soon. So no coasters or theme parks, just doing a trip over and seeing the sights. And so YouTube content's probably going to be pretty slow to start in January. I'm not even sure if I'll have a stream next month. It just depends on how certain things go. I was hoping to have my top 200 coasters countdown done, but on my secondary channel by the end of this year, but that's not going to happen. So you can look to see that next month. So that'll probably be the piece of content that comes out on YouTube. And then as far as Instagram goes, if you haven't yet, make sure to follow that. And I will be covering the news as always, but actually I've been recently doing these series of posts for like the top 20 events for the year. And those have been well received, and I think the format could translate well into just news posts whenever I feel like, so you can probably expect to see more of that next year. And I think for the most part, that's pretty much it as far as just what to look forward to content-wise in the near future. So that is for sure. Great to have you here, Chris. I know that you're busy a lot, but I very much appreciate you being able to join a stream. And as I've said to others, and I'll say it again to everybody, I hope you've been having a great Christmas and holiday season. And hope you continue to have it as we head into the new year. So I think that's going to pretty much wrap it up. Thanks to all of you for watching, and I will see you next year, and I will see you next time here on Coaster Hour. See you all.